morning, everyone. I just wanted to start out with something a little bit fun, and this shows my age and shows some of you all's age, but I think you'll get it. So this morning, like many mornings, a lot of serious topics coming up. And so I wanted to make sure that if it gets too tough, I can just kind of disappear. So I wore these shoes from the Wizard of Oz. See these? And I don't know if they work, but if I go, and correct me, Marlene, if I go 3 clicks, 1, 2, 3, maybe when things get tough, I can just disappear. So, at any rate...
can you buy me some of those?
Yes, actually...
I need a couple pair of those.
Oh, watch out, Member Combs. I have that in my possession. If I don't, Member Hahn probably does. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start. The introductions will be, those folks will be familiar. We're going to start out with Kelly Services with Dr. Marie Whalen. Good morning. And then we're going to go, and I put the time, the suggested time, although I
to our in-house substitute implementation plan, and then really coming back to where we are in the last couple of years with contracted services and being able to look at the overarching effectiveness along with the financial impact of those partnerships and what we've done to be able to show a comparison. I appreciate Ms. Perez for asking for this to take place, and we look forward to addressing it, and then transitioning later today to talk about where we are financially, how we continue to move forward, and overarching plan how to leverage money to be able to align with a strategic plan and move forward as an organization. So I'm just thankful for the teams and
that Member Snively is on her way. We'll be here momentarily, and Member Perez will just be walking through the door. And Member Vaughn is on Teams officially. So all board members are now paying attention, as in 1 more minute, and Member Perez will be here. So, Dr. Marie Whalen, would you go ahead and give us, begin?
Sure. Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. We're very excited to be here with you. I'd like to make some introductions of my team and then also the Kelly Services and Education staff that are here with us today. I have Mr. Craig Horseman, my General Manager for Personnel Services, and then to my left, Naila Uganaki. She's our Department Manager for Personnel Services and works very closely with Kelly's and our school sites. And then we also have in the audience, Ms. Cheryl Courier. She's our Vice President for the Southeast region and the practice lead. Then we also have Tina Mosley. She is the Vice President, and I need to put on my readers, I apologize, and State Leader of Florida. And then we also have Ms. Lisa Turk, oh, there she is behind Cheryl, who is the Client Service Lead for the Southeast Education Practice. So we're going to go ahead and review our agenda for today. As Superintendent Davis had already mentioned, we're going to talk about the historical perspective of when the decision was made to move to contracted services for substitutes in the district, highlighting that decision, identifying the need and the agreement through the contract that we currently have. And then there was an ask about some other Florida districts and what they do and cost, and then we'll be reviewing our contract spend as well. Did it go? Okay.
Timely idea is Member Perez share her rationale for calling this meeting. So she's going to go ahead and just speak on that. Thank you. And good morning, Member Perez.
Why I requested this, to go over this contract, and thank you so much for indulging me, is my concerns with I'm going to go really quick. I'm going to take only 5 minutes for this. The fill rates, I noticed, have been decreasing. In 2016, 2017, we had a fill rate of 87.20%, and that started decreasing. 2017, 2018, it went down to 82%. 2018, 2019, 79. 2019, 2020, it went back up to 84%, and 2021, we had a 64% fill rate during the pandemic, where, we knew that we would have a lot of need in this district, and that, that need and that fill rate was kind of discouraging with this agency. When I looked at the contract, the counties that were used in comparison were Alachua County, which has a total number of students of 28,000, Suwannee County, which has a total number of students of 5,765, Clay County, which has a total number of students of 37,786, and Hernando County, which has a total, Hernando County, 22,493, and Sumter County, which has a total number of students of 8,461, which they use to compare for a county that has 220,000 students. Now, in 2018, the Tampa Bay Times did a report on Kelly Services. The Tampa Bay Times editorial report, or report by Marlene Sokol, is called Napping, Name Calling, and Stealing. Who's Subbing Your Children? So apparently, Kelly Services was hiring the teachers that Hillsborough County was firing. And the article was very, very enlightening, actually. Superintendent Akins even was very taken aback by this issue. And I suggest, Superintendent Davis, that you read it. So I asked Dr. Whalen to provide me with the 4 large counties here in Florida, that use agencies. I have yet to receive that information, and it was back in April.
We have that for the presentation today.
But I asked you to provide it to me back in April. It was never provided. And I didn't ask for nationwide. I asked for here in Florida, as far as what counties are using what services. But I feel with the amount of teachers that we have, with the partnership of the union, because they did come to the table and say that they would assist, and I had this conversation with Dr. Whalen, and providing a pot of substitute teachers that would assist with, providing the substitute for this district, especially because, we do have teachers that are now unemployed and, requiring employment here in this district. And, that Kelly Services, that we bring this back to the table and in-house, and, have this provided through Hillsborough County School District for bringing it back to the table. We did it before. I feel that we could do it again. And, I think we owe it to this district, to our teachers, and frankly, to our students.
Thank you, Member Perez. Dr. Marie Whalen, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to continue, and thank you for your comments, Ms. Perez, and we've looked to answer all of those for you in today's presentation. So the historical perspective, I think, is very important to so that we can all, kind of, again, why we moved to this decision. So back in April of 2014, the initial, oh, sorry, it didn't. Oh, too far. Okay, the initial decision was made to get move to a piggyback contract with Kelly Services that was currently in place in Orange County, and that was approved to use substitute teachers only. That was April 29th of 2014. On September 19th of 2014, there was also a piggyback agreement that the district did with Duval County that was contracted through Kelly, and that was to provide paraprofessional substitutes. On January 17th of 2017, we went and had another piggyback contract that was with the contract in Orange County. And then on December 14th, we brought forward December 4th of 2018, new rates that were approved with our contract with Kelly. And then in February of 2020, we went out and had an invitation to negotiate because we wanted to ensure we were getting the very best rates possible, and we wanted to give other companies opportunities to bid on that particular work for us. And in May of 2020, the contract was approved with Kelly Services, and due to that contract process that we went through working closely with our procurement department, we now receive the lowest rate in the country for these services. Of the 4 companies that did bid on this in this ITN, we had EduStaff, which had a markup of 1.275. We had ESS, which had a markup of 1.26495. And then we had Staff Ease that was 1.2495, and they had extra charges that they did not build into the bid for us. So there were a lot of unknowns and extra charges that were there. And Kelly came back at 1.26495. We also went through the whole committee process. We did have union representation on the committee that worked with us, principals as well. The next slide shows the information that was originally provided by Business Services when the decision was made to move forward with the outsourcing, and we're going to talk about some of those decisions. None of us were in these roles, and many of you obviously were not on the board at that particular time as well. But it had been estimated that we were in fiscal year 11-12, we were spending close to $13.6 million for our substitutes. That was in-house. In 12-13, it was $15 million, and then in 13-14, $19.2 million. So that just has some of those expenses that's showing on the 3-year in-house when we had that contracted, or it was our employees that we were utilizing. So some of the decisions to outsource, which I think are really important for us to consider, is there was a lot of things that were changing related to the Affordable Care Act at that time, and that was mandating that large employers, that would be us, that we had to provide coverage to employees, health insurance coverage, when they were working a certain number of hours, or we would have to pay that penalty. And so that was some of the decision that was also considered considered in making this move, and that would be we would not be able to employ a substitute beyond 30 hours, and so that meant we would not be able to have folks in a long-term assignments that we would be able to utilize them. So the whole reason or the rationale for moving and to look at having that outsourced was to look at savings that would be able to provide to the district. We also had very low fill rates at that time. It was estimated to be between 60 to 70% that we were able to provide when that was offered in-house. The next slide shows the year-over-year comparison for you of the number of active substitutes that Kelly Services or Kelly Education has had in working with us. And as Member Perez already pointed out, what our fill rate, it had been decreasing, and we've been working with them very closely, and they've been working with us on that as well to increase that. And then you can see at the very bottom there is our annual cost or our annual spend for Kelly Services and throughout the years that we have been under the contract. And then on the very last column for the 2021 year, due to the low fill rate, that is, and that has only been calculated through the April 16th and getting the materials ready for this particular workshop. So I just want you to know that does not incorporate anything that we've had through March at the 8.1 million. The next slide is just another view of our absences and fill rate that you can see there. Thank you, Mr. Horstman. And then it was also asked if we could show the 2-year review by our different levels of our schools so that we can see the number of absences that are occurring there. So this slide shows that, and it represents 263 sites that have access to a substitute, either a teacher substitute or a paraprofessional substitute. And then to answer the question about the additional districts and what other districts do, we included on this slide, these are the large Florida districts that are current clients of Kelly Education. But we also know that Duval and Manatee counties partner with ESS, and that was one of the companies that also put in a bid. Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, and Pinellas all operate their substitutes in-house, and one of those 4 districts did share that they are seeking to outsource that because they are not getting the return on investment, and they are very concerned with the fill rates. And Kelly does contract with other districts in the state. We already have Polk mentioned, Orange, Alachua, Clay, Suwannee, Sumner, Hernando, and then Seminole County, and they only use, or the contract is only for food service in Seminole County. Kelly's budget breakdown is our slide 10 for your reference. So 79% of their budget is paid to wages. Taxes and workers' compensation is 12%. So that would be 91% there that is going for employee expenses, obviously. And then they use the other 9% for recruiting, administration of the contract, all of those other different pieces that they have in there. And that is what is included on the next slide for your reference. They manage the recruiters and the onboarders to screen the new candidates, all of the recruiting tools, and as we've been out at school sites, and you've probably noticed it, board members as well, we have new signage that's out. If you're interested in substituting as recruitment, I know when we were giving out the goodies during Teacher Appreciation Week, I noticed at every school I went through, they had it in the drive-through line, and all of the new signage was out there as well. They have trainers and and also mentors that work with our substitute teachers in the classroom, the automated scheduling tool that we use, and then they do the management of the incidents, payroll issues, HR concerns, workers' comp, and any unemployment claims. And then they have a team that works in filling the requests from 5:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily, Monday through Friday. And we did find out from one of the other districts as well that that is all taken on at the school sites in Miami-Dade. They have people that they have a secretary that gets there at 5:30 in the morning, and they start working through all of the call-ins of their particular teachers. I don't know what. Not pointing in the right direction. The next slide shows the recruitment cost, the estimated recruitment cost of teachers. And actually, Kelly Education has been one of our greatest recruiters for teachers to be able to move into teaching. We work with them in their certification. They might just be lacking a few things, and to help them to do that. But since the 2014 school year, we have hired 1,899 teachers into the district through Kelly Services. And it's important to note many of the other companies that also bid on this particular contract that we just went into last spring also charge an extra fee if you are to hire one of their staff members. So Kelly does not have any added fees into that. And so for the first semester of just this school year, we hired an additional 145 there that you'll see on our numbers. Kelly does support the district. This is above and beyond in other ways, and so I just thought it was important that to also note the different community events that they're engaged around to support our district and to support our students and our families. And this is just some of the details of those various activities that they've participated in, and then you will see the breakdown of what they have done to recruit and retain substitutes as well. As we have moved throughout, they have we've worked on various bonuses. We have a bilingual referral bonus. We have a military and a military spouse referral bonus. So all of these additional things, because we do recognize a less than 90% fill rate, we really want to get that up because we don't want any classroom or any site to have to go without. So these are just some additional activities that are done to recruit and retain our substitutes. And then this slide shows the contract spend and the different funding sources that we utilize through our contract spend. So each of the years, you can see that how that's aligned with the previous information in the previous slides. And then this is just another graphic for you of that total contract cost that we have paid annually. And then finally, some other considerations that we would need to consider if we did not have our contracted services. So just the employer cost alone, what we have defined as hard cost, you see there. The administrative costs, we would have to have the software to be able to run everything, all of the recruitment, advertising, and then management of all of those pieces and personnel. The time going through all the orientation and the training and the staff that would be required for that, and then also quality of the recognition programs, open positions, making sure we were having enough substitutes to be able to support the fill rate. We have estimated that we would need at least a pool of close to 2,800 to 3,000 substitutes just to fulfill our needs as we would be moving into that. And then this slide here shows what our current amounts and rates would be, and then what we used as our in-house estimate. We eliminated the markup piece on that for you and only put in the fringe amount that would be. And starting on line 5, moving all the way through line 9 on this slide, we did not change any of those estimated costs of what our actual costs were back in 13-14. Rates for those things, we carried over that same information for you, and we have an estimate that the additional expense to the district would be quite significant if we were to carry these expenses or take this on as the employer. Okay, that concludes the slides of information for you, Ms. Gray.
Thank you, Dr. Whalen. And at this point in time, we will entertain board comments and questions. Ms. Currier, would you like to be part of the Q&A because our previous conversations? And I think when Ms. Currier gets to her chair, perhaps it would be well advised, Ms. Currier, for you to introduce yourself once again, and board members may want to ask a question to you directly.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Superintendent Davis, and members of the board. My name is Cheryl Currier, and I am Vice President for Kelly Education. I manage 7 states for the company, and I've been with Kelly for 33 years.
Thank you. And for questions right now, we'll start out with Member Perez, and we'll work our way around, and Member Vaughn is on the queue. Is that correct?
Yes, is Ms. Knightley on the queue?
She's on her way, yeah.
So, yeah, we can just go around and maybe Ms. Vaughn can go in Ms. Knightley's place for now. I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you. Teachers in transformation schools have reported that they have to teach during their planning period due to no-show subs or no subs at all. That's a question. And they've also said that Kelly Services are high-paid babysitters. I need to see if you could address that. And I noticed that you didn't provide us fill rates by school. Can you talk to that, please?
So teachers in transformation schools reporting, we previously, when we still had our achievement schools set up, we had building subs that were assigned to each of the schools based on the tiers. Due to our financial situation, that was not something that we were able to put in place for this year. We did work on our MOU also with CTA because we knew the COVID impact when staff members were going to be quarantined and trying to do that fill rate. So we did provide some extra coverage for our teachers and monetarily when they had to cover that. But that is definitely something that we know is of a concern, Ms. Perez, and that's already something that Mr. Davis and Ms. McRae have been discussing for us to look at how we can support transformation schools next year with building substitutes, because that did have quite the return on investment for us. So you're right, our sub rates show that. We can get the breakdown fill rate by each individual school site. We can definitely provide that to you all. And as far as the training that our teachers do, it's much more than babysitting. I mean, they carry out the instructional process, they go through classroom management training, all of those pieces in that. And we have a lot of substitutes that work with us in long-term assignments, so they're engaged in the planning with the department and the PLCs. Nayla?
I would like to add that we also are aware about the transformation sites, and we've shifted our incentives to the substitutes to provide additional points through the Kelly Reward system so that substitutes are more inclined to pick up those positions.
My concern with that is prior to being transformation schools, we were already having some issues, and without teachers or substitutes in the classroom, our students are really suffering, and this has been a long time issue, and you have been with us for a while, and these issues continue, and we're in 2021 still addressing these issues. On page 10 of the Kelly Education Substitute Spending Breakdown, I'm looking back and comparing that to your breakdown on page 4, where you spoke about, the training, the expenses, the overhead expenses, general funds. We're only at a $3 million difference when you look at providing health care, to the substitutes after a certain number of hours, as opposed to the Kelly services, where their spending breakdown is in recruiting, fulfillment, administration, taxes, workers' comp, and then wages. I think we provide a lot more to substitutes when they're coming through, when it's in-house, and we're providing those services through us. But that's what I'm looking at, the benefits to our substitutes as opposed to the Kelly services.
Dr. Whalen, would you like to respond regarding the benefits?
We don't provide the benefits because we're not the employer.
Okay, all right.
Right, when
It's in-house. You mentioned that it was after a certain amount of hours you would have to.
correct.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Member Perez. And we're just going around the room here, and Member Combs, followed by Member Washington, followed by Member Hahn, and then followed by Member Vaughn.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. A couple questions. When we moved, what was the motivation? And I would love to see the historical perspective of the last 5 years prior to Kelly coming in, what the overall cost was, because I see what the cost is now, but I would like to have seen what the internal cost was in the last 5 years. If at some point you could provide that information, I think it would be insightful. I mean, talking 2010 to 2014 when we were doing it in-house. I see what was happening with Kelly, but I didn't see the 2010. Was that there?
No, we have 11, 12. I don't have 10, 11.
Okay. And then,
So you're requesting 10, 11?
well, I guess overall, and when we're talking about health insurance, has that changed now? I mean, I know back in the day that was one of the motivations that we switched. Is that now the same case, or is it different?
No, it would still be, because we could be penalized if we have temporary employees. They were previously, our employees were at will and temporary employees, but due to the Affordable Care Act, we could be penalized if we do not provide that, and we didn't have to provide that benefit previously.
Now, as Kelly Services, are you under the same guise as we were, or we are?
Yes, we are under, we are required to pay under ACA.
Okay.
It's the same law.
Okay. And basically, what's the profit margin on this for Kelly Services? Obviously, they're doing it because, you're profiting, but what's the overall profit margin are we looking at?
So the markup is a 1.26495. It's one of the lowest ones we have. The profit is actually very slim. It's probably a couple pennies per day per employee, simply because of the amount of money you have to spend on recruiting and then benefits. If you looked at that pie chart, 91% of the spend is to the employee. So when you think about a workers' comp claim or a lawsuit for EEOC or just their regular daily pay, all of those things are covered by Kelly. in that mock-up.
Okay. And then I had one other question. When you're looking at other counties, like you mentioned some, but what about like Broward, Miami-Dade? Are they still in-house or are they outsourcing it as well?
They're currently in-house. One of those two is looking to no longer be doing that in-house.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Combs. And actually, you're sitting next to Ms. Currier, who I almost had an arm wrestle with to try to get more money per sub. Remember, I think I squeezed you for 50 more cents per hour, and there was that discussion. And but anyway, yeah, there's a small profit margin. Member Washington?
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Whelan, for that important information. I had concerns about the transformation schools because I have a lot in my area. Do we have certified teachers also going into those schools? I mean, tell me about the certified teachers on the sub list, on the Kelly.
Some of them could hold certification. What I think is important to note is almost 75% of our substitutes hold a bachelor's degree or higher. So that's really has been a focus for the recruitment as well, that because they're degreed professionals, and they have often been in other career fields and felt like this is something that they wanted to be able to give back and try out. And so then we work with them to earn that certification. Like I said, it could just be one or two things because of what their bachelor's degree is in. So that's really important, to us. There could be a few, as you recognized the gentleman at the recognition meeting that had been your teacher that was retired, that we recognized as the substitute of the year. So some are retired staff members that we would not be able to hire back because they'd have to sit out their certain amount of time through the FRS as well. Mm-hmm. Some might hold that. We could get that information for you. Naila's got the answers to everything.
Okay.
As Dr. Whalen mentioned, 74.4% do have a bachelor's degree, but 10.4% do hold a certification.
There you go.
Oh, okay. That's a good answer then. That was a good answer.
Thank you.
Okay, next.
Can I just add to that?
Yes, ma'am.
And as soon as we find anybody that has a degree that's interested in becoming a teacher, we traditionally assign one of the retired principals who work for us, and they work with them, mentoring them in the classroom to make them more successful, and then the school district then helps them with their certification. So we work, together to ensure that anyone who qualifies will be able to take a full-time teaching position.
Okay, good. I would like to see probably the next year coming up, especially in the transformation schools. I would like to see more concentrate on putting certified teachers in those areas because I think it's important, especially in District 5, just to have a more concentration on putting certified teachers in those areas. I think we should be able to work that out, huh? Okay, thank you.
Excellent point, Member Washington, and Member Hahn, followed by, Member Vaughn, and then possibly Member Snively.
Thank you, Member Gray. And first, I just want to thank Member Perez for bringing this important topic forward today, especially during a time where we're looking for cost savings for our district. And as always, we're looking for the highest quality teachers in the classroom. So this is a really timely conversation for all of us to have. For many of us, this all started long before we were school board members. So Dr. Whalen, I appreciate the historical information you provided today. I think that on page 4, where you provide the in-house cost from 2011 to 2014, I might be interested to see, maybe the forecast. Actually, you kind of did forecast the cost today, didn't you?
Yes. On
Okay.
that last slide. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and that's based on what Kelly Services is paying the substitutes, as
Right.
well as all of those other costs that you talked about, workers' comp and, all of the staffing that would have to be put in place. Those numbers, that includes all of that, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So also, great minds think alike. I was thinking the same thing as Member Washington around the quality of the substitutes. And you did mention that a large percentage hold a bachelor's degree, but what is the criteria that is in place for a one-day sub and a long-term sub? Is there a difference in the criteria for substitute placement?
Sorry about that. Long-term substitutes have to have a degree.
They have to have a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree?
4.
A 4-year degree. And then that one day or two, short-term subs, what is the criteria for that?
So the Hillsborough County, the lowest position for a teacher is a high school diploma.
So you only need a high school diploma. Is that, that's our criteria, not so that's something that
we could change.
That seems to be like the lowest bar. I don't.
Yeah. So
I have an issue with that. I have concern about that. I'll be honest.
Yep.
I would imagine talking about putting, a high school student into one of our high-risk schools. No wonder we're hearing what we're hearing, because that's not the caliber of teacher we want in front of our students in Hillsborough County, a high school.
That is a state of Florida requirement.
That's a requirement, but can we go beyond that requirement?
yes, ma'am.
You said that.
Yes, ma'am. Through the chair and Dr. Hahn, absolutely correct. It is the foundation. I know many school districts that I used to work in as well, that we set it at 60 hours or a associate's degree.
Yes.
Making certain that we had sufficient motivated individuals that truly know how to interact with children, continue to educate, and we can help them with emergency lesson plans to ensure that children had a really good experience in the classroom. But we can set and establish that. Overall, it may impact the fill rate, or we just have to do a better job recruiting, but I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that there has, the fill rate is important. However, I think what's most important is high-quality teachers in front of our students. So if the fill rate you think is going to be an issue, then your team needs to strategize and to figure out how we can recruit higher-quality candidates. And just my last question, if you don't mind. Member Perez brought up the Tampa Bay Times story and how teachers that we were firing for probably good reason, it's not easy to fire a teacher, were being hired by Kelly Services and then going back into our classrooms. Has that been addressed? And if so, can you explain how it's been addressed? Thank you.
While I was not here during that time, we do currently have policies in place, and I work very closely with Lisa. So we do have alerts. We communicate just to know so that she is aware, or the agency is aware, that this substitute or this teacher was dismissed from our district. So we do have policies in place.
And obviously, we don't want to penalize teachers who are dismissed due to cutbacks.
Absolutely.
These are really, we're concerned with behavior, teachers who were dismissed due to maybe unethical, inappropriate behavior. So you're saying that there now are safeguards in place, you communicate with our HR department, you share a list. What is the process?
That is correct. We do communicate. So I actually work in HR, so I am the Kelly liaison. So I work closely with Lisa Turk, who's the client service lead, so that she's aware of those teachers. But in regards to the teachers who were dismissed, and it was not behavior issues, we actually put policies in place so that they had a smooth transition from our district to Kelly.
And is there a process in place to gather feedback from schools on our side? Are we collecting survey data from our schools around their experience with Kelly Services?
Yes, there is an annual survey that is done, and that will be going out to our principals for this year as well. And then we report that information back. That was one of the lines as well for the satisfaction on slide 6, where you see the principal and admin survey results for very satisfied, satisfied, or neutral responses
Yes.
to those questions.
Okay.
That you will see there.
I would love to request a copy to be given to the board members of that survey, just to see the questions, how they're phrased. And that's an annual survey.
Yes, last year we did not do it due to COVID, so that's why you will notice 1920, we did not do that due to everything else that was going on with our school sites at the end of the year.
And maybe you could provide, and it doesn't have to be today, but I would like to talk about, for example, the 2018-19 survey and see how you've utilized that feedback to improve services.
And I think also what we need to make sure we include on that is the number of responses that we receive as well. So we'll make sure that that is also included on there.
Yes, okay. And yeah, and I'd like to know the rates of, how many times do you send it out during that time that you're trying to capture data? Do you just send it out once? Do you give them a reminder? I'd like to understand that process as well. Thank you.
Those are excellent questions. Superintendent Davis?
Yes, ma'am. To Dr. Hahn's point, I do believe that we still use the do not use form to be able to transition for individuals that may have not had a favorable experience within our students. At the same time, in reading through this article, and thank you, Ms. Perez, is there still alert list still active? And those should be indicators of those who may have had particular issues, not only within Hillsborough County, but throughout the profession that you know of.
Yeah, I mean, my point of asking all of that was if we do decide as a board that this is still fiscally better savings for us, I want to make sure all of those concerns are addressed and systems are in place to make sure that we have the highest quality teachers in front of our students, that we're utilizing feedback from our school sites to improve the process annually, and that we, are having a savings versus having it in-house. And that there is I'm glad to see the recruitment tool in place. Because obviously it's a pipeline for recruiting new teachers. And we do the PD on the recruitment. They don't do the PD to certification.
No, they also do it, but they also have our staff that assist them with the professional development as well.
Okay, but teachers who are recruited have to pay a small amount to us for their PD to get certified, correct?
Certification. We do the certification, yes.
You do the certification PD?
Yes.
Okay. that was my question.
And that's a good question, too, Dr. Hahn, because with Ms. Courier, we did talk a lot about increasing professional development, and that was in 2017, 2018. So, you can hear the board members being very concerned because their kids are possibly right in front of a substitute.
Well, I just want to make sure that if we're recruiting for a hiring as a permanent teacher, that we're doing the professional development, because that is a small revenue stream for us as well.
Okay.
So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Vaughn, Member Hahn, Member Vaughn, and then Member Snively, and then I'll say a few things. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we can hear you, Member Vaughn.
Perez for calling this.
It's coming in and out, your voice. Let's see if we can't get this fixed. Pablo?
Any better now?
Keep talking. Let's see if we can get a complete sentence out. Negative. So let's look for a solution. Let's go ahead. Member Vaughn, would you be so kind as to text your question to Mr. Porter? And should you need the phone number, I'm going to give it to you right now. It's only on CNN and ABC and NBC, but other than that, oh, you have it. It's the helpline.
That's for Jenny.
Okay, let's go ahead and let Member Snively speak, ask the questions, and then we'll get everything figured out. Member Snively, and then I'll say a few things.
Thank you, Member Gray. Yes, first of all, thank you for requesting this workshop. I appreciate it. My apologies for being delayed this morning. As you know, I have a slew of children, and there's a lot of exams going on, and we're all going about 12 different directions, plus a graduating senior who has senioritis, very, very, very bad case of senioritis. But thank you for bringing that up. Obviously, I missed the first part, but obviously this was done starting back in 2014 for the main reason of being, cost effective to the school district, looking at comparisons. I remember probably it was one of the first bigger items as a new school board member that we voted on, and there was a lot of discussion around it. But I think at the end of the day, we found that it was going to be the most cost-efficient way of providing substitute teachers to our classrooms and taking some of that cost burden off of the school district. There was some give and take on that. I remember the pains of the substitute teachers who had been used to being in certain schools and being available for certain schools. There was a little bit of challenge getting some of that worked out, and I haven't heard any negative feedback in a while, so I'm assuming some of that got worked out because there were certain substitute teachers that liked to be at their neighborhood school, or they got to had a really good relationship with their schools. So is it okay if I keep going, or okay, thanks. So that was kind of the give at the time, and I'm hoping that some of that got worked out. I wanted to ask if the costs listed on pages 17 and 18, the expenses to consider without contracted substitute services. I mean, there's some definite hard costs and other costs in there. Can those be quantified, or are those quantified in another part of the presentation that I missed? But there's 2 pages of expenses to consider without contracted substitute services. So I'm looking for some quantifiable data there.
On 19, that was the estimate
there it is.
on slide 19.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. I was just trying to find that number, so I appreciate that. And then I think something for the board and superintendent and staff to think about, which might even be a little bit deeper when it comes to systemic issues with substitute teachers, and this is not really anything necessarily to do with Kelly Services, but more to do with our district and the culture in our school district is, when a student misses school, obviously that's detrimental for that one student based on how many days of school they miss. When a teacher misses school because of whatever reason, illness or whatever, you got an entire classroom or multiple classrooms that are without a teacher. And that's even more impactful than one student missing school, right? And so there's actually a report and some data from the Department of Education that Chancellor Oliva presented at a Florida School Board conference one time that was very, very insightful about how important it is that we take care of our teachers and find out why our teachers are not at school. Now, obviously, there's vacation and other things like that, but I think there could be more of a systemic issue when it comes to health and wellness and culture and wanting to come to work every day and being motivated. That, to me, in my opinion, that's the deeper issue. That's the deeper issue. We wouldn't need as many substitute teachers if we're talking about the mental and mental health, and mental, emotional, physical wellness of our teachers should be really what's more important to us than anything, because if our teachers are not feeling mentally, emotionally, and physically well, that is going to directly impact our students every single day, right? So I know that's a little off topic, and I apologize, but I think that's more of the systemic issue behind this, because we wouldn't be having this conversation necessarily if we were really addressing the systemic issue of why our teachers are not in the classrooms. So that would be my next concern to address, to have the superintendent and his staff address, is what are we doing to support our teachers' health, wellness, mental, emotional, physical wellness, so that they feel 110% well in front of our classrooms and our children every single day. Thank you.
Wow, and that's so critical right now. The mental health is of our teachers and keeping them in the classroom. So I see that Superintendent Davis is writing notes. We need to address that. I think right now Member Vaughn is ready.
Yeah, I'm going to put you up to my microphone.
Okay, Member Vaughn, you're recognized.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is there an echo on my end? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and say that you can hear me until I hear differently. Thank you, Member Perez, for bringing this workshop to the board. I've had concerns. Actually, I have been a substitute teacher hired through Hillsborough County originally and was able to have that experience, and then worked for several years with Kelly Staffing as a substitute teacher. So I have the advantage of being able to have the perspective of experiencing it both through the county itself and through Kelly Staffing. Some of my concerns have already been brought up by my colleagues in regards to our achievement schools. I know that many of our subs, where we have a hard time placing them, are in our achievement schools, and I know that we rely on a lot of long-term subs in our achievement schools. So making sure that we have quality subs should be a priority when we're talking about raising the quality and addressing the inequities within our achievement schools to help make those schools successful. Some of the questions that I have is, I feel that, and no disrespect to Kelly, but I had a much better experience when I was working through the county as far as training is concerned, and I know that we've mentioned that we offer training, behavior management in the classrooms, but is that required or is that optional for the substitute teachers? That's my first question.
It's required.
Okay, I can't hear the answers and have my sound on, or else there's a horrible echo. Mr. Porter, can you relay that back to me?
The Kelly Services representative said it was required.
Okay, so that's required originally, or professional development, that's required additionally? Because once I was hired on, I never had any required training, from my understanding. I'm sorry? Can you repeat the question to me, Mr. Porter, because I can't hear?
I think.
If I turn my speaker on, I get a horrible echo.
Okay. Hold on. Good.
There are multiple opportunities for continued professional development. It is really up to the substitute teacher. It is not required. It is only required if perhaps a school says, we really like the substitute, but they have a difficulty with a certain part of the job. Then we assign them professional development, and then we also assign a mentor to go into the classroom and work with them.
Okay. You said that you're offering additional points for substitute teachers to pick up jobs and assignments in our achievement schools. What do those points translate to? I mean, does that mean extra money, or what do those points translate to?
You are correct. It translates to money. Cash.
How many points equate to what dollar amount?
I would have to get that to you. I apologize. I do not know that off the top of my head.
Rewards details.
Okay. And then I know that how much do our base substitutes make, and what's the highest range for teachers with certification? What pay range are we talking about when we're talking about what we pay our substitute teachers?
Here's a pay sheet.
I have.
We have the document.
Yeah. Okay. So just to make you aware, the school board makes the decision on the pay rate. We do not. With all the districts we work with, the district traditionally tells us the pay rate that they want to work with, and then that is the rate that we put our markup on top of. So that's a school board decision. For a level 4 teacher, certified is $12.50 an hour. In an achievement school, it is $13.
What was that?
And we can provide the pricing sheet, too.
Yes. In achievement schools, it's 50 cents more.
So what's our lowest paid substitute maker?
$8.65 minimum wage. When minimum wage in Florida started to go up, the pay range stayed the same, and unfortunately the two met, and so it became a minimum wage position, which I don't believe a substitute teacher should be paid.
Okay, and then I have two kind of questions. I know we're talking here, I'll try to turn my thing on mute. I know we're talking about wanting to keep and retain certified teachers. So as somebody who's had to keep my certification the entire time that I was subbing because I wanted to keep it, I can't express what a challenge it's been to keep my certification up subbing through Kelly as opposed to working with Hillsborough County. When I worked with Hillsborough County, I was able to use those classroom hours towards renewing my certification. However, once they were outsourced to Kelly, I was not able to claim those in classroom hours anymore, and I had to take alternative pathways to keeping my certification valid, and it posed a huge challenge. So I'm wondering if you can address that piece of it.
That's the first time I've heard that concern, too, so
yes,
we can definitely drill down on that. I don't know if you've
It is the
heard of
first
that
time
in other
I've
places.
ever heard it, and we work, as you know, with many school districts in Florida, and we work really hard to fill those vacancies by helping teachers to become certified teachers. I mean, if we have somebody who tries out a substitute and loves it, we're going to do everything we can to help them to become certified if they have a degree. So I've not heard that, but I certainly will investigate. I appreciate you bringing it to my attention. Certainly can take it up with the
Okay, thanks. I've brought it up several times in different places, but I'm glad I'm getting it to the right person at this point. And additionally, my question is, I know that we had identified health insurance as one of the issues that we wanted to outsource is to save money, but what I'm concerned with is as the pandemic moves through, I know a lot of substitute teachers had concerns about going into the classroom front line to support our teachers with the lack of health insurance, that we're, saying that we don't want to prioritize health insurance as an expense, but as we can see during a pandemic, what an effect that had on our fill rate. So is it, I'm just wondering as a district, is it the best idea to try to cut savings on health care and, paying our subs, minimum wage, a lot of them, when we're expecting such an output, especially when so many of them, are the key in our achievement schools. So help me understand how not having health care during a pandemic affected the fill rate of substitute teachers.
They would have still been provided all of their benefits. I don't know, Ms. Courier, if you want to speak to that further.
I think Member Warren is talking about ACA, possibly.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the expense that because you wouldn't have had health insurance if the substitute had been working directly for the district. We provide health insurance as an opportunity for a substitute to sign up for. But I think what you had in your savings was the ACA, which is the federal law.
So for our long-term health care, our long-term subs, that's where we would be talking about the health care.
But to your question about, how did COVID impact substitute teachers going into the classroom, it was a huge problem. It's still a huge problem. Substitute teachers, just like full-time teachers, are concerned about their health and the health of their families. And I think it's unfair to judge substitute teachers in a situation just like you would judge a teacher. They're having difficulty adjusting. We did a lot of work. We did a lot of town halls showing substitutes that there were things in place for cleaning in the classroom. The safety was safer than going shopping at Publix or Walmart to go into school. It's basically how we ended up summarizing it for our substitute teachers. Schools have taken this very seriously in school districts, but there's still concern. And when you looked at the substitute teacher pool, in most districts, it is a retired or someone probably about my age, a person that's subbing. So what we've had to do, we came back after schools were out from March last year. In August, we had to really look at our demographic and try to make our recruiting more focused on a younger generation that wasn't maybe as concerned, hoping that as this moves on, and we're hoping that by August that a lot of our substitutes will come back. But we've literally had to replace pools in all over the country. Where we had 2,000 substitutes, we've come back and there's maybe been 700 or 800. Even though we had substitutes say, we'll come back, when it got down to it, they just were very nervous, and many of them have said, we've got a lot of calls now saying, I got both my shots, or I got my Johnson & Johnson, I'm ready to come back. I mean, just like full-time teachers, there are concerns. And you know, when you consider what a substitute teacher earns in comparison to a teacher doesn't make, as we know, an awful lot of money. It becomes very difficult for them, very difficult. These are both very difficult jobs, full and substitute.
Okay. And I have one more comment is, you know, as we're talking about the pandemic and subs, what I was disappointed in seeing was that we weren't able to arrange a way for e-learning substitutes who were willing to do e-learning to pick up e-learning teaching spots. I know that while I was trying to sub when I didn't feel comfortable going in the classrooms because of the pandemic, I was only able to go into the classrooms if there was an e-learning position. I had to do it then in the school, and I didn't know what I was going into. There was no way to accommodate teachers, substitute teachers for e-learning classes. So e-learning, when they couldn't get a sub, just basically didn't have the class for that day. And then I was told at a certain point that I had to either accept an assignment or terminate my contract with Kelly, even though I was continually saying I didn't feel comfortable, and I got one message saying that I was able to continue and they were going to extend my waiver not to go in the classrooms, and then I got another email saying that wasn't true, and I was removed from Kelly and had to go through the process again. So, you know, I'm just concerned with our process for supporting e-learning and our e-learning teachers and our substitutes in that entire situation. So those are all my thoughts for now. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn, and I'm just going to say a few things, and then we're going to have a brief mention from Member Washington, Member Hahn, and Member Combs. We do have a full-fledged workshop planned for our fiscal interactive activity, so those board members who want to speak again, if you could just be mindful of that. My only point or feedback is in 2017, I know I was the same as Member Perez and still am. I wanted the in-house. I fought for it hard and paid a lot of attention. And Member Perez, I want to say thank you for bringing this up front, because these substitutes, and Ms. Currier, you're very aware, and so are you, Dr. Whalen, they're in front of our children. And if we don't have our substitutes high on the professional development, as Member Hahn said, academics will not be a positive trajectory. Even at Sulphur Springs, when I subbed there for, I guess, about 2 months, we had a permanent sub there. Not a permanent, excuse me, but she acted like a permanent sub because she was there every day and the kids loved her. So my suggestion, Superintendent Davis, let's go work on not only making that professional development, as Member Stively said, for mental reasons, but also academic, to be in sync with what expectations we have in the curriculum department here. But Superintendent Davis, I think we should pay attention to the more full-time subs, like we used to have years ago. We had more of them, one per school. It was very effective, and the stabilizing part of that, especially for the high-need schools, is critical. it's critical because that is who these children rely on for everything that a parent really does as well. So enough said on that. So I'm going to go ahead. We're briefly going to go into Member Washington's comments, Member Hahn, and Member Combs, and then we're going to move into the financial point and part, which is really the big part of this workshop. Member Washington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of things. What you were speaking about, we used to have permanent subs. Every achievement school had a permanent sub there in case teachers didn't show up because it was a transformation school. Next on the list, what I really want to ask a question, can the principals request a sub at their school? Are they able to do that? Like if a teacher's out, a permanent sub is out?
Yes, so built into the system, there's a preferred sub-contact list, so they can add the substitutes that they prefer at their site. So anytime a substitute, or anytime a teacher, is requesting off, those particular substitutes that are coded as preferred are contacted first.
Okay, good, because I know, especially in transformation schools, sometimes you're there and you have an outstanding sub to come in, and they have outstanding subs to come in, and they really do a great job, so you're trying to keep that person there to help the school. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Washington. Member Hahn? Okay, Member Combs.
Just a couple more questions. Once again, Ms. Perez, Member Perez, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I think if anything, something great would come out of this is really talking about that training. I think as teachers go in, probably the biggest challenge would be classroom management for a substitute teacher. I would think that would be like a fundamental type of training that every substitute should have, no matter what. I just think that should be something. If something good can come out of this is to understand that, like classroom management as well as mental health, I think we're going to see a lot of children as well as educators struggling through this COVID, after this COVID, so I think that would be great. The other question that I have is with the transformational schools, and I worry about what next year will look like because I do think there is going to be a lot of movement, people here in Tampa. I would love to see what percentage of long-term subs do we have, how many of those are in our transformational school, because sometimes I'm concerned that we are putting a substitute there long term and we're making the savings and we could put a certified teacher in there. So that's one of my concerns now and especially in the future, that we are using long-term subs instead of a fully certified teacher. I think it's wonderful that we're getting our subs who are potentially able to become certified teachers in the classroom, but what percentage are there in their long term and what does that look like, and how many of those are in transformational schools? Because my concern is sometimes we're not able to find a teacher and then we have long-term subs in our most needy schools, our most, the schools that need that consistency, where at some schools a child may have had a substitute, a long-term sub, 2 or 3 the entire year, and how that impacts our children negatively. So I want to make sure that we're not using Kelly services in lieu of filling these positions. Thank you.
That's an excellent point. The correlation between a long-term sub versus a certified regular teacher and the cost to the district. Thank you, Member Combs. Member Hahn is going to make one comment, and then I believe Member Perez wants to close out.
Yeah. So real quick, going back to the quality issue that we're concerned about, and you talked about, Member Vaughn brought up the training, and you said it was optional. Is there a way for us to require maybe a module or two for all of the subs in our sub pool so that, we're kind of onboarding them with certain expectations and training that is required? Yes.
Sorry, Member Hahn, they go through about 3 hours of training when we first hired the substitute teachers. That's not optional.
Right.
What is optional is ongoing development. And
right, and I don't know what's in that 3 hours, but we do know where some of the weaknesses are, and it is in classroom management / behavior management. Some of the instructional pieces that are basic that I don't know if that's included in the 3 hours, but You could do 3 hours alone on classroom management, which would be highly effective. So that's something to consider. Also, talking about the keeping up, helping, supporting our subs with their upkeep of their certificates. Are there modules that they can take through the district, Dr. Whalen, that would help them keep up with their certification so they're not kind of out there on their own?
I'm going to follow up on that with professional development as well, when they have the certain number of hours in the classroom, because that would be recognized by the state of Florida. So we need to drill down on that point a little bit more from Member
And I think
Vaughn.
when we made some cuts originally in the fall, some of those teachers were actually made permanent subs at their schools. Is that correct, or am I not remembering that correctly?
That is correct. That was the smooth transition.
Right.
For our
Okay. So
district.
some schools, I don't know which ones, do have permanent subs. Okay. And that's my last comment. Thank you.
Remind me to not believe everybody when they say they're going to be brief, because I'm the worst, actually. But I'm going to be brief and go right to Member Perez. Thank you.
So you mentioned that we would need about 3,000 subs. I believe with a collaborative partnership with the union, they're indicating that that would be possible. I think that bringing this back to the district would be the best for all involved, especially those affected the most, our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Perez, and you hit a great topic, and I'm so happy to hear from these board members who have great recommendations, and Superintendent Davis has his list. So, Superintendent Davis, do you want to finish it off, and then we'll introduce our next speakers on the fiscal. Board members, you might want to stretch just a second. Superintendent Davis is going to speak.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you to the chair, and thank you once again, Ms. Perez, for bringing this. This is a really important topic that we need to really look at as we look at every dollar and every cent within our organization. It pushes us to think differently of what we can potentially do. And I agree with everyone's sentiments about professional development. How does that look? Is it, what does 3 hours entail? Is it really addressing the needs of Hillsborough County? How can we extend it? How can we be a partner with it? And going back to Member Combs as well, I do agree related to we shouldn't stop putting highly qualified, skilled, certified teachers in our classrooms. And we know there's long-term subs for particular reasons, but it can't be for the entire year. We need to make certain we continue to actively recruit, and especially in our transformational schools, and to make certain that we have skilled individuals ready to lead and to go. For me, we just, we talk about 3,000. I guess my question for Dr. Whalen, the 3,000 is to have hands on deck, because, we have an average between probably 900 to 1,100 if you looked at, individuals not in the classroom per day.
And some days we're over 1,400.
Okay, I just want to make certain. So maybe we can look at a different model to see if it's financial available, but I would agree you'd have to have 3,000 because of availability. But openly, we appreciate the time, and we'll continue to go back and do some more homework to bring back to the board.
Thank you. And I also want to thank Dr. Whalen, Mr. Horstman, and also Ms. Curria and your staff. So thank you for being here. Board members, if you want to just take a minute or two to stretch, we're going to have Ms. Johnson. First, I think we'll have Jerry Ford, and hold on, don't tell me I had it all written down, and George Smith speak first about the disclosure rules. Stretch time, a few jumping jacks, nothing out of the usual. going here, we'll never get done.
No, that's my concern. I don't want to box you guys in.
Okay, everybody, it's time to do part 2. Member Combs, Member Washington, Member Perez is accounted for, Member Snively, and Member Hahn. Whoop. How did you get over there? Okay. All right. Member Vaughn, are you in the on the speaker? Oh dear. Where is Jim? My son's home. He is?
Well, I'm talking. Not working. You can hear me?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's okay. Board members, thank you for being so astute and getting everything ready for our next fiscal meeting. First off, I believe Jerry Ford and George Smith, who are right in front of us, will be introducing themselves. They'll be speaking on disclosure rules. And welcome and good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here this morning. I will be very brief. George is going to handle the bulk of this. As you know, I am your financial advisor. George is one of your disclosure counsels. At present, the district has roughly $630 in debt outstanding. Interestingly enough, when you look at the ratios, that's very low for an organization your size. It's low, you're not leveraged, it's short. It's one of the few positive aspects that the rating agencies cite in their reports over the past year. Most of that debt is in your outstanding COPs. There's about $515 million outstanding in those COPs. They all mature by the end of July in 3031, so it's only about 10 years left on those. The question that people often ask is, why should I be concerned about the debt? It's already out there. I have no immediate plans to borrow. Why am I concerned about this? Well, there are a number of reasons. One, no large school district that grows can escape debt forever. Also, when you're putting in assets that will last 30 to 50 years, you generally don't want to use short-term cash for that. You want that portfolio balanced. But it also means that there are rules in place that you have to abide by when dealing with investors and when dealing with the markets. And if we just take a look at those COPs right now, we're aware that of that $515 million, over $200 million of them are held by 40 institutional investors that we can identify. And they're not just faceless and nameless. Many of those institutional investors have what they call single managed accounts, or SMAs, and those are accounts for individuals that hold your securities that are being managed professionally on their behalf. So there are hundreds and hundreds of accounts out there that are being managed by these 40 investors. We're all aware that the rating agencies are watching what we do. We're aware that they're watching what you say. In fact, every time there's a board workshop, we get a call from one or more of the rating agencies. They see what you say in the press. They see what goes on social media. They see what Marlene Sokol puts on Twitter. And it is not unusual that we get those calls and that we get calls from investors who are holding millions of dollars in your securities. Our point here today is that just as members of our community, whether it's teachers who are impacted by the comments made in these rooms, whether it is parents who may be trying to make a decision as to whether or not their children will go to a district school or a charter school and watch these meetings, those investors also watch these meetings and they're concerned by what you have to say. What we want to make sure is that y'all understand the rules of the road so that there's not an accidental footfall that creates a problem for you, gets you into trouble, gets board members into trouble. We started this back in November when these problems first became apparent. it. We sat down with senior staff, and we had 2 law firms on the phone with them, and we went through about an hour, hour and a half talking about the issues that you're going to take about 15 minutes with here today. So we'd like to make sure that by the time we're done here, if you have any questions, we'd love to hear them, but that you understand that there are some things that you need to be careful of in the way that you present your message and in the way that you use the mediums that are out there to convey those messages. It is, as things deteriorate, as conditions get worse, people place greater focus on what you say. And we have taken a journey from being one of the 2 highest rated school districts in the state by all 3 rating agencies to being the lowest large school district in the state. And we are still on negative outlook by all 3 agencies. We're on negative watch by 1. So there is heightened attention to our financial condition. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to George and let him take it from there.
Good morning. Thank you, Jerry. I'm George Smith. I'm with the law firm of Bryant Miller Olive. We are your disclosure counsel, as Mr. Ford just presented, along with another law firm. I was on the phone call that he described earlier, where we walked through how to navigate, the time that we're in right now. As I mentioned, I'm with the law firm of Bryant Miller Olive. I've been there just over 22 years going on it. And since about 2002, I've represented the school board, and I also head our school board practice. So we represent school boards throughout the state of Florida. We also represent many cities and counties, bridge authorities, the state of Florida. I had the pleasure of representing the State Board of Administration and Financing Corporation last September. They issued $3.5 billion, so I did the disclosure work for that. It was the largest deal ever done in the Southeast, largest fixed rate deal ever done in the southeastern United States. So I live this life. I love it. People think I'm crazy. I'm not very popular at cocktail parties. It's not the sexiest conversation, but I really enjoy it, and I'm happy to talk with you about it at any time. Like I said, right now, closing a deal with Palm Beach Schools this week, pricing a deal for Volusia Schools this afternoon, Pasco Schools is approving a deal tonight, doing a deal for Martin Schools, Manatee Schools, Santa Rosa Schools in the Panhandle. So this is very much the biggest part of my practice is representing school districts. I also do some work with the legislature. I drafted legislation that was approved in 2019 for Senator Montford that you may be familiar with. It gave some relief from the cost per student station requirements so that whenever you build schools, we now have some mechanisms so that we can work around those cost per student station requirements. And it wasn't our focus, but it also allows you now to build a school that's not survey recommended from DOE. So that was just a little side benefit that came in through that legislation. So what I want to talk to you today is about what investors are looking for. And we kind of think of this in 2 different realms, and Jerry's already touched on it. We have your primary, where you go in the market, say, we need to borrow $100 million. We're building a couple new high schools. We need new debt. And then you have it where you're not in the market, and you still have security disclosure obligations, and how you communicate with anybody can be seen as securities communications. If a comment is reasonably expected to get to an investor, which, as you know, investors watch everything, and they have AI that mines every type of communication that you could ever imagine, many that we didn't think even existed. They're on top of it. Your investors on top of it. They're holding hundreds of millions of dollars of your securities, as well as other school districts in the state of Florida and other school districts nationally. You may know whenever you go into the market with your primary offering, the underwriters come in with a report and state, okay, California school districts are issuing this on this day. We either do want to compete with that because we can beat them, or we don't want to compete with this other district, and they massage or they structure your debt because you're competing with all kinds of other issuers of debt, all kinds of other issuers of securities. And if I'm a big institutional investor or a local retail investor, I need as much information as I can make to make an informed decision. Some people have an affinity for you. You know, my nephew's graduating from Plant City High School next week at the fairgrounds. Maybe I should gift him some Hillsborough County stock or bonds. I don't know. But you have those affinity investors, but you have people who are very concerned and are looking at big institutional accounts who listen to what you say, as Mr. Ford just mentioned. They look at your rating letters. But whenever you go into the market, you can't just say, hey, check out our ratings. This is our rating. Lend us $100 million. investors. So we prepare a book that looks like this. I'm sure many of you have seen this, read through it. Great material for insomnia if you have it. But it lays out everything the investors want to know about the school district prior to making an investment. So we talk about your attendance. We talk about, here's how our historic attendance has been. Here's how many teachers we have. Here's how our relationships are with the unions. Here's our audited financial statements. So your full audited financial statements are attached to this as an appendix. Here is a chart that shows our revenues and our expenditures and our general fund balance for the last 5 years. Here is a 3-page written description about our general fund balance. This is what the statute requires. You've all heard this. I won't go into it, but if we're at 3%, this happens. If we're at 2%, the statute says this. So investors know, and it's here. And we try to put everything in here, whether it's good or bad. It has to be balanced, and that's part of the standard is you make true statements and you don't omit any statements that need to be made so that those true statements are still 100% true. You can't just leave off a little detail like my 4-year-old son might do from time to time. We have to give full and balanced disclosure. And if something goes bad, if it goes south, and you've heard about it in the news, and the most current one may be Puerto Rico, if there's some occurrence where they might default on it, the first thing investors are going to do is grab this book and say, why didn't you tell us that this was a risk? And I think there's 10 pages of risk section here. The SEC just came out on the corporate side. The SEC can't regulate you directly, but they can regulate you for fraud. And they just came out on the corporate side and said, if you have more than 16 pages of risks described in your offering statement, then you also have to include a summary. Here, I think you're up to about 10. So you guys are, a big, sophisticated investor, and you have our issuer, and you have big, sophisticated investors. And so it's easy to see what's going on whenever we do a primary offering, when you're borrowing that money for a new school, or if you're refinancing or refunding some of your existing debt. Your staff, I'm on the phone constantly with Mr. Brady, with your CFO, even with your superintendent. I was on the phone with Dr. Kemp earlier this year, as we described, and we're discussing what we need to put in here. We're on the phone with your attorney. Is there any litigation that might be material to an investor? One of my career highlights as a first-year law student was working with the Department of Banking and Finance for the state of Florida. We were suing Lloyd's of London for securities fraud, and that's where I got hooked. That's probably the source of how I got to where I am today. And they had told them they were recruiting investors actively without telling them, we've got all these pending litigation claims for asbestos and toxic waste sites out here, but please, invest in our company. And that was my first securities fraud case, and we were off and running. I figured out I'm not a litigator. I want to be on the front side and not on the back side. So I'd much rather help structure the deal and make sure we stay out of those problems. So what happens whenever we're done? We have this, we put it on a shelf, and now we build the school. Everybody gets, goes on with life in Hillsborough schools, and then your debt, your securities, trades on the secondary market. And those investors still look at what you said when you originally issued the debt, and there's a website that compiles all of your current financials, compiles updates to other information that's in this book, and talks about your ratings. If there's a rating change, whether it goes up or down, because the SEC doesn't care if it's good or bad, they do, but if it's good, you need to disclose that so that one investor doesn't have an advantage over the other investor who states, I can get a less risky piece of debt for a cheaper price, because those prices fluctuate just like any other security. And so we need to disclose everything to those investors. And so what does the law require? So we have to make our statements whenever we do our primary offering, but we have to make our statements when we do our secondary offering. And last year, in 2020, the SEC issued this, big 9-page white paper. And this is specifically about the application of anti-fraud provisions to public statements of issuers and obligated persons of municipal securities in the secondary market. So they're saying, not when you're doing this, but when you have no debt on the table that you're selling, but your investors are trading that debt and buying it and selling it back and forth. And there's a big market for that. What obligations does the issuer, the borrower, the school district here have in that situation on an ongoing experience? What do we need to say? Can we say, we just had a new humongous manufacturer or something that's going to come in and humongously increase our tax base. In this book, we say who your top 10 taxpayers are. We say what happens if one goes out of business. How does that dilute your tax base? So what can we say? Some of you have seen Elon Musk. Everybody loves Elon Musk, the king of the Twitterverse right now. He got in trouble a few years ago, and every day it says, the SEC going to come hammer Elon again? They don't on his Dogecoin. They don't on Bitcoin, apparently, as long as he's truthful, unless he ties it in with this Tesla, where he's an inside person. And so in 2018, he said, hey, I think I'm going to take this company private for $420 a share. That was significantly above where the stock was trading, and it caused the stock to go up. And the SEC say, wait, who is it? And he's like, oh, it's not fully fleshed out. Really, what it came down to, it was a joke using the numbers 420, which are very popular in the Twitterverse. And so he liked playing with 420. That's my own personal opinion. There may have been others. But he got fined personally $20 million, and his company got fined another $20 million. He was kicked out of his position, and his general counsel has to monitor his tweets. And that's what the SEC says. This is no joke. This is when you're communicating with the market, people listen to you, and that moves the market. And apparently he can still get away with it for Dogecoin because he doesn't own Doge, or maybe he owns, I don't know. But he's not seen, I guess, as an inside person there. But his statements on Tesla or SpaceX are, and the SEC and investors pay attention to that.
And I think there's a consensus that being his securities lawyer is the worst job in the industry.
So what did the SEC state in this paper? And they put it out very specifically, and Mr. Ford's touched on it, but this is the dry part, if you will. I'm just going to read this paragraph to you because I just want you to hear exactly how they state it. Their lawyers, they use their words very specifically, and I don't want to misstate what they've said. They state, the statements of municipal issuer officials, everybody here is a municipal issuer official, are also subject to the anti-fraud provisions if the statements are reasonably expected to reach investors or the securities market. We know everything now is reasonably expected to reach investors. Notably, statements by municipal issuer officials who may be viewed as having knowledge regarding the financial condition and operation of a municipal issuer could be a principal source of significant current information about the issuer of the security and thus be reasonably expected to influence investors and the secondary market. Accordingly, depending on the facts and circumstances, always depending on the facts and circumstances, but depending on the facts and circumstances, the statements of municipal issuer officials that may be subject to the anti-fraud provisions could include verbal statements made by the municipal issuer officials, such as speeches, public announcements, and interviews with media representatives, as well as statements disseminated through other avenues, such as in the staff's view, social media. So they're just basically saying, if you're making a statement, if you're talking about the financial conditions or the operation conditions or the management conditions or anything else about Hillsborough schools, that could be considered communications with the security market and you could be subject to anti-fraud rules. So we know that you're not cooking the books, right? There's been reports of issuers who come in and out have fraud. They change numbers in their accounting statements. They do something that's fraudulent. We all know what fraud looks like. But what the SEC has said is, if you make a statement, there has to be a mental scienter, the legal term, but you have to have a mental focus on making that statement. But the SEC has said, or the courts have actually said, that the mental requirement for violations of the anti-fraud provisions may be satisfied by a showing of recklessness. You don't have to cook the books. You don't have to change the number. If you were reckless, then that could still be considered fraud under Rule 10b-5. Recklessness has been defined as an extreme departure from the standards of ordinary care, and which represents a danger of misleading buyers or sellers that is either known to the defendant or is so obvious that the actor must have been aware of it. So it's a reckless standard. So if the superintendent or the chair or any of you are making statements to the press or writing an article to the editor or on social media or anywhere else, SEC is paying attention, investors are paying attention, and if it's reckless, that could be cause for an 10b-5 anti-fraud violation.
Let me just say briefly before we hand it back to you, Ms. Gray, that We've been through this in detail with your staff on more than one occasion. You're fortunate that Ms. Johnson has been through these wars before. She knows how to guard against these things. Your staff knows how to guard. But before every call we have with an investor, before every call that we have with a rating agency, one of the things that comes up is we will not provide information to one group of people that is not available to everybody. We cannot provide this information piecemeal. We cannot give one investor an advantage over another. So we make sure that whatever we provide them is public and that it's not speculative. It's generally something that's been to the board. It's generally something that's been to one of your workshops. It is not something that nobody else has seen, and we state that on the calls right at the beginning of the calls. And frequently there will be questions, and we'll say, we're sorry, that's not public information at this point. We'll make it available to you when it is. So our concern here today is simply to protect you and make sure you know how to protect yourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Ford, and thank you as well. Sorry, let me get this name correct. Thank you. Let's see, Mr. Smith, George Smith. It's such an easy name. That's why. If it was complicated, I'd be right on it. But at any rate, I want to ask Ms. Johnson, and then we'll go from there. Ro Johnson, you brought these two gentlemen to this finance meeting. Could you explain what where your mind was at during, as this is transpiring?
Well, any district that's in a deficit, there's a lot of statements that's made internally or externally that might not be true, and it's important to pay close attention to the facts as we discuss and we move forward. When we talk about financial issues, I wanted everyone to know that we got to take a holistic approach. This is about the kids, so we're in this together, and that the questions that needs to be asked in a way that we not offending our investors in any kind of way or exposing the district to an issue that might put the district at risk. So that's why I brought them in here, and I always like to start off with that so we can always put that in the forefront and in consideration when we're speaking about financials in the public.
Okay, so you all are set the standard, and the cautionary message has been delivered. Board members, I'm not sure if you have a question or two with regarding George Smith and Jerry Ford, but if so, signify with your hand. Thank you. Member Washington, Member Snively will be next.
Okay. Thank y'all for coming to Mr. Ford and Mr. Smith. That's right, George Smith is a common name. I can always remember that one.
Thank you.
But I want to go back to in '96 when I became the principal at Chamberlain, and each school had investments. Maybe you can help me understand it much better because I never could. We had $400,000 in investment, but it was held at the county office. How did those investments come about?
Okay, that is a different situation. That was your cash that belonged to the school. It was in your school account, if I understand what you're asking correctly. And then the central office here, through their cash manager, would have invested that for you. Generally, at the State Board of Administration at that time is where the school district held all of its money.
So it's different now how the operation is.
That's you as an investor as opposed to you being the borrower and other people investing in you. What we're talking about today are the securities that you have sold, that people in the public have purchased, and your obligations to them. And that's different than taking your own money and investing that with someone else where they have obligations to make sure they're dealing fairly with you.
Okay, good. I always wanted to know that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Snively, and then Ms. Johnson, you may want to go ahead and give an overview of what you would like to accomplish today. But let Member Snively, of course, go first. Thanks, Member Snively.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming and explaining that. Even as a board member who's served for a while, it's good to remind every board member about what the SEC requirements are and the consequences that are possible when municipal officers are not careful about what they say. And so what I hear you saying, and I just want to make sure I understand because I don't want to dance around it, but we as board members, being officers of the municipality, if we are going out on social media, Twitter, Facebook, talking to the media, speculating on things, saying things that could impact an investor's opinion or decision, that could be detrimental, significantly detrimental to the finances of our school district. Is that what I'm understanding?
I think you're on the right track. So you want to know that your investors trust you. And that's what's going to get you the lowest interest rate. As Mr. Ford said, sooner or later you'll have to go back in the market. You'll have to build new schools. You'll have to do maintenance. You'll have to do that normal operations. Your leverage right now is very low, but you'll need that to operate. And so if the investors don't trust you, then that could be detrimental just on its own. So if they're getting all kinds of different information, if they're getting, just conflicting information, if they're getting, LSU, I won't go into this long story, but LSU had a bond deal that was canceled. They had just signed the bond purchase agreement. The university, obviously LSU, you know that. They signed a bond purchase agreement for like $115 million, I believe. This is about 2015. And that day, in their official statement, it said, the state has reduced the amount of money that we've received every year for the last 7 years. They gave great disclosure of it. They showed it. And they talked all about it. That day they signed that contract, the LSU's president said, hey, we might have to go into financial exigency. And he didn't say what that term meant. He just made a quick statement, and the press ran with it. They're going into bankruptcy. Well, that's why we have all these dang definitions is if you think, and the book itself said financial exigency, but when he said this, everybody lost confidence, and they actually canceled that bond deal. And they said, we don't know what you're doing. You're the president. And, well, this has nothing to do with the bond deal. He was, my words, posturing to the legislature. Give me more money. And probably rightfully so. His money had been cut. The Governor Jindal had just come out and said, hey, I might veto this whole budget. He's like, wait, we need some money. And the investors were like, we're out. Y'all figure your stuff out, and then we'll figure it out, and then we might charge you a premium because we don't know. Now, did the president commit fraud? He wasn't prosecuted for it. Nobody really accused him of fraud. Was it reckless? What he said was true, but he didn't give enough story. So what was it? It was, I'll tell you how the bond buyer keyed it. They just said it was a communication breakdown. And he didn't communicate properly with the market. And since I have your focus, I'll read one quote from you. The experience encountered by issue in the media can exemplify the impact of headline risk. And that's what we're talking about. Misunderstandings about the credit conditions in municipal markets issuers occur sometimes out of carelessness, sometimes due to inexpert advice, sometimes because of ignorance, and other times because individuals want to drum up attention for themselves. All these things that we always experience. When we're in the primary market, often if I have a client who I love all my clients who has a vocal person, we might say specifically to him, hey, you just need to be quiet for 6 weeks. Just jump off, take a break for 6 weeks because we don't want to speak to markets. And that's what, even though you don't have anything in the primary market, you can spook your investors. And as Mr. Ford said, they're watching this. They're watching the meeting right now. They have associates, they have AI mining it, and they're wanting. And so then if they say, hey, I don't have confidence in this board, I don't have confidence, I told you we describe management in this book, we describe operations in this book. If they say, I don't have confidence, instead of buying Hillsborough Schools, I'm going to buy a different place.
George, if we could, just hypothetically, because I believe the question was focused on, we have securities in the market that are trading in the secondary market on a regular basis. If we have an issuer official that makes reckless or inadequate statements, which is a hypothetical, what could the potential consequences be?
Well, it could be kind of the Elon Musk description. I mean, that's a far extreme, right? But I think the more, unless you're out and out just fraud, but the more kind of common outcome, if it's a reckless statement, if it doesn't have sufficient details on what happens, is you would lose the confidence of your investors.
But from a legal standpoint, is is there any potential liability? Can somebody be fined? Can the SEC take any action?
The SEC would typically do a cease and desist, your communication, and which, could they fine you? Yes. I mean, they have all those types of tools in their toolbox, but if it's reckless,
Would they fine the municipality or the individual?
Well, for instance, for both, yeah, and they've done that in the city of Miami. They've done it elsewhere, and that was with a primary offering, but the individual can't be held.
Okay. I think the message is loud and clear, and I appreciate you bringing it forward because although we live in America and we have freedom of speech, every word and action that comes out of our mouths does have a consequence to it, and that's what we have to keep in mind as we are officers of this municipality. Thank you.
So in effect, this school board, can be responsible or is responsible for a low rating. Is that basically, we can actually, members on this board can be responsible for making the bond rating lower, or is that just too generalistic?
Well, that's too generalistic, but
okay.
let's be very clear here. It's policy decisions that resulted in 8 years of expenses over revenues that resulted in those credit downgrades. Those are directly decisions made at the board dais.
Thank you. Member Combs?
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming today. I just had a couple questions and some comments. We're talking about us as board members, but I also want to say, before coming into office, I realized that the district was in a financial trouble, and as I came through, I saw that. I think we also need to mention, for me personally, I never felt a real big threat with the state takeover. When I looked at, we shuffled money for many years. Also, I think we need to take accountability for the letter from Corcoran, what that did, the reaction, the lots of media that were brought in, a lot of focus with the media for our financial issues. As great as they were, I think there was a lot of limelight for that wasn't necessary. I think that was a lot of limelight. So as we talk about things that board members have said or done, I think we also need to look at, as a group, as an organization, what we're also doing to make that negative. And sometimes when we talk about we're the worst financial district ever in the history and we've come back all this way, I honestly never felt that threat of the state takeover. When I looked at it, it was $9 million, and I knew we were making the cuts and we were doing what we needed to do. I think that's important as well. So I think we need to look at the group as a whole and what we're doing, not just the school board members, but also the staff in Hillsborough County Public Schools, and maintaining that is positive, because I never really felt that threat, and I think that's really important to not have that instability. And as we move forward with the money that we receive from ESSER 2 and 3, what we do with that, how much we put in our fund budget, what we do to reserves, I think that's also just as important to members. And is that true or not? And can you confirm with that?
Absolutely. And our intent here today is not to be critical of anybody individually, not to be critical as the board as a whole, but to make sure you're aware of the same things that we help your staff become aware of so that you're protected. But you are right. The letter was widely disseminated. It was seen by a lot of folks. Some folks took that as a negative. Others took it as a positive and said, hey, they're going to be forced into doing something they might not otherwise be willing to do. We've heard those kinds of comments back from the market. But yes, to the extent that they see you together working towards a plan and see you serious about this, absolutely, that is beneficial.
And what percentage would you, or do you think we should have overall in the fund budget?
Well, let me make there is no magic number, right, but you would see that if your goal was to be in that higher echelon of ratings, it would be north of 10%. Okay, that's on an undesignated basis. What at least one rating agency has said in their latest report is they don't view ESSERs as a solution to your problem. They view that as a stopgap. That since they are non-recurring monies, that should not be considered part of the solution. That's just a bridge to making tougher decisions. If you like, I can read you their
No, I think overall, I think the board realizes that that is not a reoccurring fund. That is why we've taken these drastic measures with cuts, and we are being fiscally responsible. But I just think it's important to know that as the bond rating has decreased, it's multiple reasons that, and I want to make sure, because I feel that when you came in, we really just talked about, the board members. I think we need to all realize that it was because of, I don't think but we didn't really discuss the overall. I personally think that the letter from the DOE was probably really, really negative. I don't see anything positive that came out of that, because in the end, I really felt that we were going to be okay. So that's just me as a personal board member saying that. I can't speak for the board.
Thank you, Member Combs. Excellent points. Member Vaughn will want to speak or have some comments. Ms. Johnson, are you prepared, following Member Vaughn's, to begin your finance meeting? Okay. Member Vaughn?
Thank you. Can you hear me this time? Yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. There's a horrible echo. Thank you for this information. I see that it's very clear to members Snively, but it's actually less clear to me. And I have a question, especially since Ms. Johnson was the one who asked for this to come in. To me, what I'm hearing is that it's crucial that our staff members and our finance team give us the most updated and accurate information when it comes to the budget. And what I'm wondering is, as we're talking about everything that board members say or municipal officers, I want to go back to kind of the point that Member Combs made, as in, what is the responsibility for our staff members? Because I know that, previous to the Tallahassee releasing our ESSER funds, Ms. Johnson was at a CIC meeting where she disclosed exactly how much we were getting and what our finances were going to look like as far as ESSER's coming a week before it was disclosed to board members. And I still haven't gotten an answer of where that information came from or how she had access to it to when we didn't. So I think I'd love some clarity as far as, and I know that made, the media reported on that. I'd love some clarity as far as staff members' responsibility and making sure the board members have the information that they need to be accurate. Thank you.
Is that a question, Mr. Smith? Did you want to answer that, or?
I'm happy to comment on it.
Okay, and then Ms. Johnson.
All right. Question for me. I mean, it's the relationship is a board and staff relationship. I'm not commenting on that. That's always important. But Ms. Johnson obviously would be seen as somebody with knowledge. So she's your CFO. So from a security standpoint, the investors paid attention to that. She is, and you are not, nobody is required to make any comments at all. It's very hard not to make any comments, obviously. As a corporation, you might have a little bit more flexibility, but as a government, people are want information all the time. So some corporations have no disclosure coming out. Others, do talk about it from time to time. Obviously, we'll give Ms. Johnson an opportunity to speak about it, but her responsibility, she would be seen as somebody who has, from the securities perspective, she is definitely seen as somebody who has knowledge and would be somebody to pay attention to.
This meeting, I brought them here just as not for the board, it's just for everyone that has intimate, like my positions, anyone have intimate knowledge that can represent the district as a whole. I look at the district as a holistic approach to it, so information share. I try to be transparent as possible. I try to give detailed information. It's about building trust and building awareness. And with that being said, when I get in front of a crowd, if I have intimate information about something, it's my role to share as much as possible, if I can, to put a good spin on the crucial financial projections that the state of the district. So I'm looking at the state of the district as a whole. I'm not trying to go out there and share anything that no board members is not aware of, and I take full responsibility for that because you guys was not aware, but I was assured that the money was becoming soon, so that was my position, and I stick with that position. And anytime I give financial update, I'll try to make sure it gets to the board members first before it comes, you guys hear it outside of that.
Okay, Member Vaughn, that's a response to your question. Did you have another question or two?
I was was just curious where Ms. Johnson's got that information from.
Okay, she's going to respond.
Well, a lot of CFOs, we meet together. Information is shared and given details about where it come from. I don't know in particular, but the CFOs, we do have a network that we meet together and we discuss information. And inside the district, the information sometimes is shared before it gets to the board members.
Okay, and that's the response. Member Vaughn, should we go ahead and do you have another question? And then we're going to have Ms. Johnson continue her financial interactive situation that we're going to explore.
No, I can move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Member Johnson. First, let me thank Mr. Ford and Mr. Smith. This is a very important amount of education you just gave us, and I appreciate it. And it does make us all pause to make sure that we're very responsible for what we translate from what we hear from our CFO and superintendent to what we put on paper, social media, or say to the Tampa Bay Times, etc. So I think we're better off that we heard from you, and I appreciate it, and I know the board members do too. Have a great day.
Thank you. And I know that you're glad that you got the short version, not have to put up with what the staff has dealt with multiple times from us.
Yeah. Now, if we do have sleeping disorders, can I have that booklet for the the insomnia? All right. You have a great day. Okay, Ms. Johnson?
So we're not going to go over the financial report because that's going to be done at the board meeting, but what we're going to do is have an interactive presentation on where our finances are currently. But this is just an interactive, so these are not hardcore numbers for us to get off with woo-woo-woo about. I want everyone just to look at the state. We're going to use we're going to ask for board members to project some revenue ideas, some expenditures ideas, and we're going to put it in our PowerPoint to see the impact of whatever you guys come up with in the impact of the ESSER money on our budget and everything. So we'll get started with the finance team. Is everyone ready?
We might have to turn the light off. I can't see it that well. Board members, what do you think? If we turn the lights off, maybe we could see it better?
Can you?
I don't know. It looks blurry, but let's try get the lights off in the front just in case. Are you doing that? Thank you, Member Snively. Yeah, and board members, we are reminded that and board members, please put on your glasses. But anyway, that we have a half hour till 12, and we may have to go over till 12:30. So there's probably at best 1 hour left.
Okay. So we're going to start off. We had in June, we had a fund balance of $31.8 million. And as you know, we brought some strategies to close the gap for the fiscal year. And those strategies was we used ISSER 2 funding, and then was $24.4 million. And also, we used ISSER 1 and Title I funding and everything else that's eligible expenditures to close to 24.1. So we had 48.5 million to give us a fund balance of 80.3. So is everyone following me where we are?
Is this on a page number row, just so we can turn to the page in our booklets?
No. So
oh, okay.
Kind of increase it. And
this is interactive. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so what we did was here, we took the budget for each fiscal year, like fiscal year 22, 23, 24, 25. We just kind of project what our budget is going to be for the next year, and we just kept it constant across the board. But let's go up to the revenues, because we did change the revenues. Susie wants to speak to the revenues and expenditures, because she revised the revenue expenditures for next fiscal year. But this is a forecast based on assumptions we have now.
Okay, so the assumptions for fiscal year 2022, they're very, very conservative. We use the We used the first calculation we got from the state, which actually reduced our state revenue because of the number of students we project to have next year. So our state revenue actually reduced by 19 million. However, the required local effort went up. So it was a total, the difference between the two is about 6 million overall. So revenues are reflecting approximately a $6 million reduction. Expenditures, we just, for expediency's sake, we left salaries the same, but we did know that we're going to have an FRS increase and half a year of an increase in insurance, about 1.5 million in insurance increase. The other increases that we used was we increased substitutes because we know we're going to have substitute next year based on the students returning to brick and mortar, and materials and supplies we increased because of textbook adoption that we did not have this year, we're going to have next year, and that about sums up our assumptions. It's very, very conservative. It's going to change. We'll get a second calculation from DOE in July. We'll get our property tax rolls will be certified by the property tax collector mid-June, late June, so these numbers will change. So they're not set in stone. This is just for illustration.
And for illustration, we took charter school revenue. We added the revenue and we took out their revenue and expenditures. So if you can see this line item, we're removing of charter schools. So our revenue is $1.5 billion. And let's go down to expenditures. And we moved charter school from here, as you can see. So overall, we're spending $1.6 billion. So we're showing an operation financial deficit of $150 million, but we don't have everything that's going to happen in the fiscal year. We don't have those separation of those employees or those moving of employees from attrition. So this is going to be down a little further, but for the sake of it, we're just going to play an interactive game as far as budgeting, with this being our deficit being here, our operation deficit. Can you go down further, huh? And as you can see, we've taken the $80.3 million that we get for the fund balance, we're moving it over to our beginning fund balance. And as you can see, if we don't do something, and we didn't put those expenditures in here, that's going to reduce this overall deficit. But we're going to say we're dealing with a $7 million. And this is not a real deficit right now, but this gives you some kind of idea, a projection, what the impact of our beginning fund balance being $80.3 million, and we're operating deficit $150 million. So everybody follow me? So we're going to be in deficit 70.1 if we didn't do things that impact this overall deficit. So let's get started. So we're going to take questions from the board members who like to project out some ideas, what you like to do this fiscal year to help solve the overall operation deficit.
You know, I have just a silly example, but just to get everybody started.
Yes.
How to save some money. And by the way, this came from County Commissioner Stacy White a few years ago. Turning off the marquees, the individual school marquees early, so to save electricity. But I only throw this out there just to get everybody going. And expenditures, we're going to need more mental health support teams. So, okay, board members, just tell me when you want to have your great ideas. By the way, Ro, was that an idea? Is that an example of an idea?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to put the board members in the wrong lane.
But I wanted to show the impact of this one-time funding, though.
Okay.
Let's start off with the ISSER funding. So everyone, I'll give it a start. Since everyone said we have this ISSER funding, it's going to save the day, and how one-time funding, what it does, it gives us time, but it doesn't actually save the day. So we took $24 million already off the ISSER funding of the 86 million that we got the lump sum. So let's put the balance, I think it's like 42 million. So let's put the 42, let's go down here expenditures. Let's go, because this, what it equates to, let's put the 42 million here positive. So if we plug the gap with 42 million positive, and then we get another lump sum, I think it's 46 million. So did you put, okay. This the overall impact? I think something is not.
Ro, you may be losing us. Maybe not.
I'm trying to make sure she.
I think it changes.
It did change?
Okay,
Oh.
it changed.
Go drive down. No?
Okay, all right. So we're positive 17 million. So our fund balance has become positive of 17.8 million. That's what the one-time funding with. If that one-time funding was used, let's say we're going to use it on expenditures, new expenditures. Let's see what it impacts that. Do everybody understand? So we're going to take this revenue source that come in, and we're going to maybe, how about give bonuses? Because I heard that some districts are giving bonus with this one-time funding, and I think we got like 24,000 employees. How about we get $24,000 in bonuses with the one-time money? We're going to use it to give out bonuses. 24 million.
So these are your hypothetical.
And that's what I want. I was just giving ideas. I want those ideas to come from you guys to see the impact. If we give, we gave bonuses with it, then it impacts our fund balance negatively with this one-time funding. This would ESSER. Did anybody got some ideas? Come on.
Member Washington, did you want to share an idea?
Ms. Johnson, I thought we supposed to be getting in another ESSER 2 and ESSER 3
Yeah, we can use that too.
Which will be equivalent to about what, 400, so over 400 million, right?
Yep, you want me to put the ESSER 3 in here?
Yeah, we need to get some kind of suggestion, I would think.
Yeah, thank you, Sheikh. We are into suggestions.
Yeah.
Hypothetical or not.
But what are we going to spend that 400 on? So we put it in here as a positive, but what are we spending it on? Recurring expenditures, or are we spending on expenditures, one-time expenditures, that in the future that we're going to create, a plan to spend $400K?
It's going to be one time. I mean, it's not reoccurring.
Okay, but if it's our current expenditures are what we're living on now. Okay. But if we're going to add, we get 400K, are we going to increase our expenditure on something else outside of the, internally in a district?
I would think we would spend some on salaries for some of the employees who have not had opportunity to have pay raises.
Oh my God. Okay, wait.
Okay, Member Perez, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Wait a minute, and let me, Ms.
Yeah, go ahead. This is interactive, so just ask.
Money back into the fund balance to bring that up to the 5%?
This is what the ESSER do. You got to have qualified expenditures to actually pull down the money. They don't give us the money, so it's like a grant. So you have to have qualified expenditures based on the specification that's written in the language of the grant. You understand? So this is not like money we could just spend it on anything. It have criteria whether expenditures can happen.
Oh, okay.
Well, then,
a shake, and then I'll do my best, and then Nadia.
I'm sorry, I keep butting in. Okay, but we don't know what we can spend the monies on now.
Okay, but you could build out assumption. Is going to be expenditures we currently have in the district, or are we going to give increases with this, or what are we going to do? What do you want to do?
What I would want to do is I want to see some of that money go to the transformation schools in District 5, because we're under academic pressure to bring up grades and stuff in our, as well as paying teachers more money.
Let's expand VPK in those transformation schools.
That's right. Yeah, transformation schools. That's right.
There's a way to spend. I can spend
That's right.
money.
I have to have the money.
Husband, I can spend money.
Hold the phone.
Okay.
Yeah, women can spend money like anything, and
it's one thing if it's going to be an added cost. That's what what I'm saying. Additional expenditure, is it going to be additional cost over and above what we're spending now, or it's going to be expenses that we have now? That's what I'm asking. So it's going to be, if we're going to allocate more resources to teachers, we could put that up there. I don't know what
and District 5 for transformation schools.
And transformation schools. So let's say if we put 200K negative right here. 200 right here. Because we create additional expenditures with that 400K, right?
Okay.
All righty? 200, not 200,000, 200K. All righty. So the impact, see, this is one-time expenditures. This is what one-time does. If you have one-time expenditures and you create extra expenditures with it, it impacts the fund balance. So that 400K, just say we get all these, this the ESSER money in this fiscal year. So our fund balance is 193.8. Then next year, we're back to 43.3. We're still in deficit. We're in an operational deficit. So I don't care how much money we infiltrate into this district, if we don't spend it wisely or make necessary revenues. Anybody got any revenue ideas about?
Okay, Member Combs has been raising her hand.
Go ahead.
And Member Perez, did you want to ask a question?
Now, I just had a couple things. Thank you so much, all of you, for everything that you do. A couple things. Obviously, we want to look at generating revenue, how we're going to generate revenue. And maybe if we're looking at generate, can we look at that and maybe talk to them and generate as far as the energy efficiency, how that can be one thing. I mean, that's just a thought. The other thing is really looking at every single contract that we have in the district, especially a lot of the online programs that we use, like how often are they used, how well are they utilized, are we renegotiating every single contract? So I guess the expenditures would be to look at the contracts. Also, as I've mentioned very often, I think the most impact our students have are on the school sites. So continuing to look at that top down, the number of people who are, maybe who aren't on the school site that need to be on the school site. And then finally, maybe that half day. I know people have gotten really used to that half day professional day. I mean, that, if we can add that and have that more, we can't do it next year, but in the future, to look at those professional days and how well they're utilized, how well that half day is utilized, because that's, when we look at overall, our payroll is the biggest impact. So really looking at that half day, how does it impact us? How are we using professional days? Can we decrease that? And can that increase more profit or more revenue for our district, should I say?
Okay, let me go ahead and thank you, Member Combs. Those are excellent points. Because this is getting a little bit more eclectic than efficient, and because we have such short of time, I'm going to just go ahead and do the round of the round that we usually do, so each board member can express whatever they do, whatever they want to do. Regarding Generate, we are going to have a workshop on that as well. So just so you know. So. Member Perez, I think you were next. Member Snively, and I know Member Vaughn is on the phone. Member Hahn, did you want to speak?
I don't think they do.
Not right now. Okay, so let's go ahead. Member Perez and Ms. Johnson, I think we're going to go ahead and do this because we still have the committee structure to put together, Finance Committee. Okay.
Thank you. Member Gray. So with the contracts, I appreciate Member Combs bring that up because I did receive a list of contracts with duplicate services. So maybe looking at that and refining it.
For what?
Duplicate services, like, where we have multiple companies providing the same services. Really refining.
Multiple contracts.
Yeah, really refining that because there's several companies that offer the same services, and maybe kind of refining those contracts.
And I want everyone to understand, 89% of our budget is personnel expenditures. So if I take 11% of our budget, if you take away purchasing service, utilities, supplies, shut down buildings, turn off lights, we're still in an operational deficit because 89% of our budget is personnel. So I just want that. So if I even skim these operation supplies even further, they're only going to yield me so many millions of dollars. And that's going to focus, then we're still going to be in a deficit. Because I'm talking about $150 million potential deficit. Let's just say 110. Because we did make some cuts this year. A lot of cuts were made. And it's up to us to build a secure Hillsborough School District. So we'll say if we took $55 million of personnel expenses out, I ain't saying we did, but just say, I'm just throwing out numbers. If we cut $55 million, can you put that in there? 55 million? But what's not been stated, when people leave, they get compensation absence, they get vacation pay, those unfunded liabilities that impacts that savings. So we don't gear this 55 million until the next fiscal year. So this is a current, could you move it all the way across? No, I mean, the 55. Can you drag it to each fiscal year? See, this is a consistent reduction, okay? This is consistent reduction. So once we reduce this cost, it's a permanent reduction and it impacts every fiscal year. So it's not a one-time reduction. It impacts every fiscal year. Now, we could reduce contracts like we did things, some strategies to mitigate costs, like travel, materials, supplies in a classroom. Those are like one-time things. It can't be consistent because you got to keep on controlling. We can get some savings, but we're going back to brick and mortar. So I want that everybody to understand some costs going to go up. Electrical costs going to go up. So we have to consider all those costs. But one thing is guaranteed, when you make this reduction from attrition, we got a 55 million. See how it impacts the overall fund balance? Because we got to either have some revenue generation ideas. We have girls, I had them did some revenue generation ideas if we pass a meal. Can you guys show that slide about passing a meal or a half a meal? Because we need that too. But before you go, go ahead. So the impact of passing one meal is $120 million to the district. The impact of passing a half a meal is $60 million to the school district. And then the girls did, based on home value, what that costs, a monthly cost for if we pass that this is the yearly cost. So if you're living in a home for $50,000, you're only paying $25 additional for that one meal. If you live in a home that costs $300K, this is the yearly cost, $275 a year. This is the yearly cost for one meal to the voters. This is the home value right here. So if you go on up, go down.
So, Ms. Johnson, thank you so very much. We appreciate it. I'll get back to Mrs. Gray if any questions maybe we asked her, and we can ask board members for 101 to go through this interactive, and that way they'll have ESSER expenditures, be able to look at the overall millage that we can levy potentially, and look at the overall trend impact to navigate through your worksheet. And we appreciate you and your staff and the hard work that we're just tough on time, but thank you for you and your staff. We know how hard that you continue to work for this district.
Yeah, and actually did an excellent job. What we're going to do, folks, and I do know that Member Vaughn is on the phone. Mr. Porter, should we just go ahead and let Member Vaughn ask her questions, and then we'll go right into the financial structure? Member Snively, is that okay with you? The answer is okay.
Sure. I have questions.
Oh.
But, we're going to do this one-on-one.
I did have some questions, but
Hold
if we
on
want
a
to do this
second.
one-on-one, it's
Let's do this right. Member Snively, you are next, and then Member Vaughn, and then we'll conclude, and then we'll go into the Financial Committee.
Yeah,
I
and just-
apologize, Member Snively.
No, it's okay.
And just know for the record, it's almost noon.
Yeah.
And so you do have a full board meeting this afternoon as well.
Correct.
So
Yeah, we have a full
put that
day.
on Yes.
Okay. Member Snively?
Just a few things. First of all, thank you, Ms. Johnson, for bringing all this information forward to our attention. I think it is important to get board member feedback on some of the ideas on how to, what suggested uses are of the ESSER. I think it's important for us to be more familiar with the criteria so that we know how we are allowed to spend those dollars, because now I'm super hypersensitive about anything that we say about our finances because people are listening to what we're saying with regard to expenditures and cost-saving measures. But, Ms. Vaughn and I think we both agree that we're still waiting for some of those mitigation explanations that were presented at a couple of previous workshops, so we still want to know the detail around some of those mitigation strategies for cost savings, but also I think it was Ms. Combs that also mentioned about contract management and how we can improve in that area. But at the end of the day, you took the words out of my mouth that almost 90% of our expenditure is on payroll and benefits, and that's probably the hardest conversation to have. Although I will say, according to the AASA, which is the Superintendent's Association kind of best practices, that is not abnormal to have a 90% expenditure on human resources, so not completely abnormal. So it does allow us to have that conversation about what are some of the other ways that we can. So just quickly, contract management process, definitely, because the way we're doing it now, I think the end user of the contract is reviewing the contract, but as a board, we've asked year after year after year to understand better the process of evaluating each contract before we go into a renewal, and how we are evaluating the services that we're getting, who's responsible for making sure that we are getting what we're supposed to be getting, or that we're not getting taken advantage of, and who's negotiating the contract to the benefit of our school district. And I'll just put out, and hopefully they don't come find where I live, but like the Pepsi contract would be a really good example of something that we probably should renegotiate, because I'm a Coca-Cola girl, but that's just one example of a contract that has a lot of moving parts and variables to it, and I'm not sure who's actually responsible for making sure we're getting what we're supposed to be getting out of it. And then school consolidation, that's another whole issue, but we've got a lot of schools under capacity. We should probably be talking about consolidating our properties. Medicaid reimbursement is still an issue with the process, making sure that we continue to improve the Medicaid reimbursement process, and just and transportation for magnet schools. We've been talking about transportation for magnet schools for years. No one can seem to tell us how much we're actually spending on that, but I guarantee you we are spending more than we are taking in revenue-wise, and we are always in the red when it comes to transportation. So we've got to really have a serious conversation about that. And I know there's unfortunately cons to that as well, due to the purpose, the whole intent behind magnet schools. But we've got to start having a conversation about what we can do within our means, and how that is going to impact our budget. And then finally, just not stop using non-recurring revenue for recurring expenses. We really have to be careful what we say and how we the intention that we have. I mean, we would love to give everyone bonuses and raises, and I would love to give that to our employees. We also have to be very realistic as to what we're able to do, what we can't. If we can do anything with ESSER, if we should do anything with ESSER, what our intentions are with that. We just want to be very careful about what we say out there publicly, because what I don't want to, personally, I don't want people to hear something that we say and misinterpret it as everyone's getting a raise or everyone's getting a bonus. and that may not happen because that's a board decision that we haven't made yet. So we need to really fully understand the criteria behind those funds. So that's I got lots more, but I'll save it for my one-to-one with Ms. Johnson and her team and the superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Snively. Those are excellent points. I think we're going to think about or talk about a workshop on these the ESSER 2 and the American Rescue Plan, those monies, how the line items, how they'll be spent, who they will affect, etc. So I'll put that down. We'll talk about that amongst us as we go on. The contract management generate, that's a very good example, big time. Are we measuring it every 3 months? What is the cost of it? Is it giving us the returns on the investment? Are we really checking that? Ms. Johnson, that's something that I would like to know. What is the cost every 3 months? But we are going to have a workshop just on that. And I'm going to go ahead and go to Member Vaughn, and then we're going to jump right to the committee that we're going to put together. And here we go. Member Vaughn, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Member Chair. While I appreciate this conversation, I'm very confused about how at one point in the meeting we're having a presentation of how careful we need to be as we discuss our finances, and then we're kind of jumping into, I guess, a Q&A of what can we do to get more money, but it's not a full picture because it's not taking into account all of our ESSERS acts or all of our revenue, and I feel like when we put out suggestions of what we want to spend on, really what it does is just show that we can't afford that, and I'm just very confused by this whole presentation. Going forward, if we have conversation or suggestions about our financial state, I'd really love it for us to have a full, as Member Snively said, a full understanding of our CARES Act, how we can utilize it, what's coming in. I still haven't gotten answers as far as what's coming in from the second one that was held back. But if we're looking for suggestions on ways we can save money, I know that Member Combs, Member Perez, many of us have said repeatedly that we'd like to see more cuts at the top, where people who are making more money are facing the cuts just as much as the people who are in our classrooms. And while, I see answers to every other one, no matter how many meetings we have and how many times we ask this, I know there's something going around that kind of shows since Superintendent Davis came in through to July, some cuts that have been made. But again, a majority of those people are making less than $85,000 a year. We haven't seen any cuts at the cabinet level. We haven't seen any cuts at the top. So I don't know why we keep getting asked for suggestions when the number one glaring suggestion is one that's never addressed. So I just wanted to bring that up, but I know we need to transition, and I do look forward to our one-on-ones and having another workshop with the full information. Thank you.
Thank you for that word transition, too, because that's exactly what we need to do. And here we go. Abracadabra, we're going to go ahead and transition to talking about the structure of the future Financial Advisory Committee, if that is even the title. So we really haven't determined anything in terms of consensus. Mr. Porter, I'm going to rely on you to help guide this conversation. We want to put together a structure, and what is the best way for board members to put the input, and Ms. Johnson also, because this is not my field of expertise, and I just will need some guidance.
So I think today it would be helpful for Ms. Johnson to outline her proposal, and that's something the board can react to, and you can provide comments to her, and then I think it should be placed on the agenda for the June meeting so that you can officially establish the committee and what the makeup of the committee is going to look like. So you establish that you're going to have a committee, and with the details to follow. It seems, again, you should get feedback today from Ms. Johnson, react to that today and privately as well if you'd like, and then in the full interest of transparency, have it scheduled for the June meeting to establish the membership and the bylaws and how the committee will operate.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Porter. Ms. Johnson, would you go ahead and begin, and then we'll have board discussion.
Well, I did reach out to Miami-Dade via the superintendent request, and we asked some questions about how their committee was formed. They said the Community Financial Advisory Committee members consist of the same individuals that is part of their standing Community Advisory Committee men. Members from their standing community advisory group volunteer to be a part of the financial committee, or the board members can appoint an individual as well as the superintendent to be on the financial advisory committee. The areas they focus on was legislator update, budget allocation, student count, CARES Act planning, facilities, and various programs or any other things that impacts the financials. The CFO runs the meeting. The committee is an advisory committee to the CFO and the superintendent. No board members are involved in their process at Miami-Dade. The board members are not allowed to attend the meeting because their presence changes the dynamics of the group. How long do these participants remain in the committee? No time limits currently. Do they have norms? They have the normal norms like raising your hand, making comments, and being polite, things like that. But far as their bylaws, they have one bylaws. It's a standing parent subcommittee on district and school board priorities will be formed with a minimum of 7 voting members on an annual basis. They meet once or twice a month. The subcommittee have no fewer than 9 and no more than 12 members, including at least 1 representative from each region and at least 1 representative from each school level. 1 parent member from the Family and Community Involvement Advisory Committee had indicated their willingness to serve on the committee. The chair will open the members to their interested parents. If a member has 3 unexcused absent, the organization or program will be asked to make a new appointment to the subcommittee. Members of the committee may serve unlimited years, however, may only serve 2 years as a chair.
Okay, well, there you have it. It would be very advantageous for us to have a copy before us, but having said what you had said, I took notes as best as I can. I see that Member Combs. I think at this point, board members, with your great listening skills, if you can just give feedback, and then Mr. Porter, somehow we've got to figure out before the board meeting next time how to capsule this. So let's just hear from board members based on what Ms. Johnson read from the Miami-Dade. It's also in the Florida statute. Board members signify if you would like to speak at this time. Member Hahn, anyone else? Okay, we just need the copy. Member Perez? Okay. Member Perez, is that a hand for the comment? Okay. Anyone else? Member Combs? And Member Vaughn. Okay, just remember your order. Okay, Member Hahn?
Okay, awesome. I don't know if you got, Member Combs wants to speak as well.
I got
you did?
Combs,
okay.
Yeah.
Copy would be great, but I did take some quick notes. I do like the idea that board members appoint somebody from their area, and of course the superintendent gets to appoint somebody. I like a 2-year limit, similar to CAC, so that we can, we're going to have lots of interest, right? So if we could have opportunities for people to circulate through, but I think 2 years is a good amount of time to wrap your arms and really understand the issues. I think 1 year is too short. I think the chair should be a 1-year position. That's just my opinion. This is just, again, my first reaction to hearing this. So, and the bylaws, tried to write that stuff down, but couldn't get it all down. I think what I heard was 9 to 12 members. Is that what I heard? Based 7 members.
7 voting members.
7 voting members. But then you said something about
a limit of up to 12 members.
Up to 12. Okay, so I guess because other districts have smaller boards, yeah, we would do it, I would imagine, to reflect the number of people on our board. And okay, so those are just my quick reaction to what you said. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Hahn. Then we'll go to Member Washington. Wasn't you next? No. Okay, Member Perez, and then Member Combs, and then Member Vaughn.
So is it every 2 years we have to find a new committee member?
They said they have no time limit on how they can serve. You know, some members don't show up, so they change out. Far as if they miss several meetings, someone have to appoint another member to represent them.
Okay. And were you asking for a time limit?
I was. I just didn't want somebody to indefinitely, and I think I'm sorry. I didn't want somebody indefinitely, and as we may turn over board members, new board members should have an opportunity to appoint. I would suggest something very similar to what we do right now for CAC.
Right. Okay. And when do we have to have that committee member's name?
That's up to the board.
So what I would recommend is I think on the June meeting, if you establish what the membership is going to look like, what the structure is going to be, and then if it comes down to the board members will be the ones appointing, you won't have to do that then. It could be sometime after the June meeting where you would actually appoint, and we would send out letters to your appointee and asking them to serve. But I think it would be sometime after the June meeting.
And board members, you might want to reflect as to what your goal is in terms of when would you see this organization to begin, so we don't go indefinitely. That's something else to consider.
One thing that might be helpful is the fiscal year starts July 1st. If this gets approved in June, you could start in July. And that would be sort of a natural starting point given the fiscal year start.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Porter. Member Combs?
I think this is an excellent and needed idea. I think it would be great. I know you're going to give that to us, the bylaws, and that way we can look at it, and then the next time we can come in and see how we would like to change it. The other important thing that I think is I do think it's important to have a term limit, but I will say that I think if we have a description of what we're looking for, and everybody may feel different, sometimes you may not find that correct person in your area or region, or there might be somebody else in another area that's important. So I think that's really important. We really want to make sure that we have what we're looking for as far as qualifications, and the background. I think that's going to be really important if we're going to have those people. I mean, obviously, I'd like someone from District 1, but if there's somebody amazing from District 5, and Mr. Washington doesn't want that person, I think that's going to be really important because for me, it's not going to be from where they live, but what they bring to the table. If somebody has a lot of experience and background and knowledge, I think that's going to be really important. I want my area to be represented, but I think that's going to be important. So I think if we get the bylaws, have a week or two to look at it, meet together, see how we can make, change what Miami-Dade did that will suit our district better. I think that's good, but I think it's a step in the right direction. I do believe that, I know that there's nothing nefarious going on, but it's great for the community to be really involved and to have that presentation and to have that as more knowledge, knowledge is power. As more people have more knowledge of our financial challenges and where we are and where we're going, I think it's going to be great for our district.
Very important remarks. Thank you, Member Combs. And then I believe we have Member Vaughn. Member Vaughn?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing up conversation about this. Is Miami-Dade the only county that has something like this in the entire state of Florida?
Ms. Johnson?
No. Okay. So I'd like to see what other county structures look like and not just Miami-Dade. One of my concerns in this conversation is, yes, I think we should have term limits and I think we should have strong bylaws, is the fact that I believe the reason that we're thinking about making this committee is to reconnect with the community, to have transparency so they understand our budget and vice versa. My concern is if we're modeling it where board members can't attend the meetings or there's very little interactions because the community feels uncomfortable with board members, I think that is not solving kind of the problem that we're having. I think that board members should be able to attend the meetings, and not only should board members attend, the most functional committees on any municipality are where the committees actually do the work to make presentations to the board. They're doing some of the heavy lifting as far as the research and coming up with ideas. So when we have conversations like we had today where we're saying, what are some ideas to minimize operational expenses, the subcommittee can present to us, hey, we've spent time, we've sat here are some of our suggestions, and it should be an interactive committee with the board, with the superintendent, with the board members. I also find that since there are 7 board members, 7 members of this committee would be too small. I think we should at the very least all have one representative, and maybe, if the superintendent wants one, or if we have a parent, or even if a student wants to join, that we make space for them. So I think, definitely maximizing to 12 members would be important. So those are some thoughts. I'm glad that this is just a preliminary conversation. We're going to revisit it, and I appreciate you making the space for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. And what I'm hearing, too, is there's some common denominators already, a concern or a thought process for term limits, certainly bylaws, years of service that they will serve, and whether there should be board involvement. I know Mr. Porter's writing notes as well. The other consideration, should we model it from what district? Is Miami-Dade the only district? We do have a very solid working model with the Oversight Committee, which absolutely shows diversity, staff, non-board involvement, although we are invited, and it also shows school site, but that's a committee that I'm also looking at as a possible model. Mr. Porter, what commonalities do we have so far that I might have missed?
I think you've outlined them, and I think what I would suggest is if you have more comments, get them to either me or Ms. Johnson or both, probably both. I think we'll work together on crafting an agenda item to take back to the board, and then you can react to that and go forward. But I think this is just a start, not just a starting point. We've already started, but I think as more comments occur to you, get them to us, and then we can work it into a draft that we can circulate and that everyone can react to, and then you can vote on this and get this thing started in July.
Excellent, and that's what I wanted to share too, a July start. Board members, do we have any further comments on this particular subject? Member Snively?
I just have one because I thought Member Combs made a great point, because I can think of someone who would be extremely qualified for this position, who spent most of his entire life in my district but just recently moved to Dr. Han's district, and now I'm like thinking, wow, he would be such a great addition to this committee, but it's going to restrict it if we say that person has to be currently living in the district where we represent, and obviously there are a lot of people, but to me also it's very important to have someone who brings what they bring to the table, who has the experience, who has the knowledge, who has the fortitude to help make the decisions that this district needs, and the experience to do that. So I would also concur with Member Combs if we could have a little bit of flexibility there.
That's completely up to the board.
Right.
I mean, you could have it, you could all pick from countywide, you could all pick from your districts. Of course, the 2 countywide board members wouldn't have that issue. You could establish sort of parameters and qualifications about what you're looking for that help my guide.
I think that would be really helpful to guide us.
And you need to keep in mind diversity, and you want to make sure that is covered in this committee that you're forming. And so I think all those elements need to be set out on the table, and then you can decide how you want to proceed. And we'll work, Ms. Johnson and I will work on that and get it back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Washington?
Yes, diversity is really important, so I would like to see diversity, like you said, and also I'm going to have someone from District 5, because I think when you have somebody from your district, they really understands the needs and they can have a more input. I'm not saying it's wrong how you all think, and I'm saying for Shake Washington, I'll have somebody from District 5 in order to give input. Okay, thank you.
We have a few minutes, Member Washington, to discuss. Okay, we have a few minutes to discuss perhaps that option, whether we want per district or, in our case, Member Perez and I, we have the whole, 9 yards. So, but district representatives, you may have an opinion on that. And we can spend just a few minutes and then we'll adjourn because we have a long night tonight. Okay, any Member Hahn?
So I know we have 7 of us, plus the superintendent, that would be 8. I'm going to deviate a little bit from going outside of our district. I agree with Member Washington, by the way, but I'd like to see maybe 2 students on there. I think that, I know that was brought up by another member, I think it was Member Combs, and, I think having 2 students on there to get kind of their input, I think it's a great teaching moment for them. And, we can talk about as a group how we decide on those students and the qualifications, but I know we do that with CAC. I know typically we have a student at all our board meetings, so this is just really another opportunity to, help educate our students on financial responsibility and understanding how a big bureaucracy, works, and so I appreciate that,
because now we're talking Hillsborough, how we are distinct maybe versus Miami-Dade. We're having students on there.
Yeah, I don't remember if she said there were students on there.
No, there's not. But anyway, I like the idea. Member Snively?
I would just also say, because I think that's a fantastic idea, and I know there would be a great benefit to having students, their perspective, but also an educational moment, like Dr. Hahn said. I think it would be also important to maybe have a teacher who is represented on that as well. So if we've got, that's 10, 11, so we've got a couple teachers. If we've got space, let's leverage that with maybe a principal. So a couple students, a couple teachers, a principal, but I think we should leverage that opportunity, because like Ms. Vaughn said, we're trying to really establish relationships and rapport with the public and trust and keeping it open and transparent. Well, let's, if we have the opportunity to bring people in, let's do it. Let's bring them in so they can have a real great experience understanding, our financial situation, and that just creates more advocates for the school district to go out and help us support what we're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Sorry. I was just saying maybe 12 we start with, but we see how it goes. There's nothing that says we can't expand it or say 12's too many. We have to kind of see maybe a first year's pilot study. That's my educator.
You could also have voting members, and you could have ex officio members that are there by nature of their office, like a principal or a teacher. I mean, there are different ways to structure this, and I think all this feedback is very helpful.
This is extremely helpful, and I agree with Member Snively. What a great opportunity, again, for community outreach and to those touch points. Every time we have the opportunity, it helps us be more of an accurate board, relevant board. So thank you for that. And Member Vaughn, I believe, is she on the?
Yes.
Okay. Member Vaughn?
Thank you very much. Yes, I think I was the one who suggested having teachers or having students on the board, so I'm really glad to see that that was a positive suggestion. I would like to say that as far as the district-wide or district limit, I think that we should make that optional. If people feel the value of staying within their district, then they can certainly do that, and if members want the freedom to go outside that to match a skill set, I think that should be optional. We're always about options. My question would be is if we expand it to having a student or a teacher or a principal on the board, how do we select that and what does that look like? Thank you.
Excellent suggestions. Mr. Porter?
Yeah, I think there are different ways to structure it. I would anticipate from the way this discussion is going that each board member would want to appoint at least one person, either from their district or from somewhere in Hillsborough County. If you wanted ex officio members, by ex officio I mean they're on the committee by nature of their office. So it might be a situation where the principals decide among themselves who they want to pick, or the teachers. I mean, there are different ways to do that, but I would see the board choosing who you think would be your best representative, and then some of the other positions, depending on how they shake out, no pun intended, that it's up to the organization to sort of figure out who that is. But I think those are good ideas, and if you have thoughts about it, I'm happy to consider them.
So at this point, Board, if you do have more thoughts, share it with Mr. Porter, Ms. Johnson. I think CC and both. Superintendent Davis, did you want to speak?
Yes, ma'am. I think it's a good idea. Our team will be readily accessible to support this council for the board to be able to continue to look at finances. I did want to, there was a report the board back to on last Tuesday when we did the PowerPoint related to our financial update related to the Department of Education's ask for our reserve balance. On page 12 of that PowerPoint identifies all of the buckets of money related to ESSER 2, and from that side of it, we have not had any or received any information related to how we or when we received that last bucket for $54 million, or how to actually the grant to actually expend this. Our team has been working on a document to present to the board. We're just waiting on further guidance from the state, hence the reason why you may not have any particular updates. So still waiting. As soon as we get that information, we'll make certain the board's apprised, but our team stands ready to be able to engage the board in a workshop about how these dollars will be spent in order to improve the experiences for our students.
Thank you, Superintendent Davis. Thank you, Ms. Johnson and financial staff. Ms. Johnson, did you have something you wanted to say? You're all done? Okay. All right. Thank you all. See you tonight, and let's go ahead and gavel it out.
Bring it down.
All right.